important role First Nation people continue to play with the Sunshine Coast community. Together, we are all stronger, and this week we acknowledge NAIDOC Week. NAIDOC 2020 always was, always will be. First Nations people are spiritually and culturally connected to this country. This country was crisscrossed by generations of brilliant nations. The First Nations people were Australia's first explorers, first navigators, first engineers, first farmers, first botanists, first scientists, first diplomats, first astronomers, and first artists. Always was, always will be acknowledged that hundreds of nations and cultures covered this continent. All were managing the land, the biggest estate on earth, to sustainably provide for their future. NAIDOC 2020 invites all Australians to embrace the true history of this country, a history which dates back thousands of generations. It's about seeing, hearing and learning the First Nations' 65,000 plus history of this country, which is Australian history. We want all Australians to celebrate what we have, the oldest continuing cultures on the planet. Always was, always will be.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Please remain upstanding for the opening prayer, which today is provided by Senior Pastor Phil Greenbury from the Life Point Baptist Church in Maroochydore. Lord Jesus, we ask your blessings on the people who have been called to lead the Sunshine Coast community in which we live, work and play. We pray for our council meeting today as they make decisions. We pray that they will be guided by what is right and what will have the best impact to grow and develop the Sunshine Coast. We pray for our Mayor and each of the councillors that will give them wisdom and insight when dealing with people and the needs in their electorate. May there be a real sense of unity in the decision making here today. Grant them and us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak out when it is time to speak out and to listen. May we all speak compassionately into people's lives during this very difficult season. May they and we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice and by the spirit of love. Bless this meeting today, all those present, as well as the lives of those who will encounter afterwards and will be impacted by the decisions here today. May we all make every moment count for something worthwhile. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, Senior Pastor Phil Greenbury. Please be seated. We have full attendance today. Thank you. The minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 15th of October 2020. Someone please move they be received and confirmed. Councillor Winston moved, seconded Councillor Dixon. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 5, informing of conflicts of interest. Councillors, I'd like to draw to your attention that on 12 October 2020, amendments to the Local Government Act 2009 and Local Government Regulation 2012 came into force. The amendments include the new Chapter 5B, which sets out our new legislative requirements for dealing with councillors' conflicts of interest in local government matters. These arrangements will apply as to how we manage such matters at this meeting. So in the event that you have a prescribed conflict of interest or a declarable conflict of interest, please raise that prior to the item commencing. There is no mayoral minute. We do have a procedural motion, and that is that Council suspend standing orders to consider item 8.8 on the agenda after item 8.1. You happy to move that, Councillor Babarowski? Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cox, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have 4 presentations this morning, and the first 2 are from Councillor Suarez relating to the Blue Heart Sunshine Coast project, and the second, the Environment and Livability Strategy. Councillor Suarez, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One of the Sunshine Coast Council's region-shaping projects and major green spaces, Blue Heart Sunshine Coast, was nationally recognised at the Cities Power Partnership 2020 Climate Awards on the 29th of October 2020. Craig Rucastle, who's the presenter of ABC documentaries War on Waste and Fight for Planet A, explained that the Regional Innovation Award looks to uncover and celebrate transformative climate solutions that will inspire other councils and other levels of government to act on climate change. The Blue Heart project is a truly innovative approach to secure opportunities for the future that are consistent with Council's objectives in the Environment and Livability Strategy. For many decades, the sugarcane industry provided an economic framework compatible with floodplains. But since the closure of the sugar mill in December 2003, the area's biophysical constraints present a challenge for alternative agricultural uses. This land is prone to flooding and is increasingly tidally impacted as sea level rises, and we are already seeing that. By 2100, this area will be largely inundated by estuarine waters. Bill Hadrell, who explained during his acceptance speech for this award that Council has recognised that the historical challenges and future challenges required a different, innovative and multi-layered response. Council and community have been searching for a solution since about 2003. That makes this project has been in the making for 17 years. Received an email from Susie Chapman from Healthy Land and Water, who also clarified this point, where she said, "I had the good fortune of managing the CSIRO project on the future use of the cane landscapes with Professor Jeff McDonald after the sugar mill closed. Jeff's main quest was to achieve a whole-of-area plan, a seemingly impossible dream at the time. We sadly lost this mountain of a man with his huge heart to a melanoma in 2007, but Jeff would now be so happy to see what you've all achieved in 2020. I feel that you've unknowingly captured his essence with your blue heart." Bill Hadrell went on to explain during his acceptance speech that instead of simply considering the inundation of this land as a threat, the challenge was set to find opportunity. Opportunity for council, for the community and for landowners. To look to the future and figure out what this land could ultimately be 100 years in the future, and to help our community prepare for the impacts of a changing climate. Through a partnership with the state government and Unity Water, a commitment was forged to find community, economic and environmental outcomes. This project is already delivering benefits with improved water quality, enhanced fish habitat and wetland areas, and in the last couple of months, providing access to community to wetlands they haven't previously had. The focus now increasingly turns to blue carbon farming opportunities as a revenue source for landholders in the area, and continue on Council's journey to achieve zero net carbon emissions. When Bill mentioned this in his speech, Craig Rucastle responded with, "It's lovely to hear people involved in politics talking about 100 years away as the planning. We often hear talk about the election cycle being too short and people not thinking long term. Look at you guys, Sunshine Coast, they are 100 years down the path." This forward thinking is testament to the council officers who have been involved in this project over the last 17 years. It is a period of time longer than any single person at this desk has served as a councillor, and it is my hope that future councils further embrace and support this project, because there's still a long way to go. The Blue Heart is a forever project with a long-term commitment that will continue to grow and build momentum at a regional, national and international scale. Council congratulates the staff involved for winning this award and looks forward to supporting you with the work that is still to be done.
Well said. Well done. And the second item or presentation from Councillor Suarez is to do with the Environment and Livability Strategy.
Well, we're smashing goals in the environment and livability space. So Council's Environment and Livability Strategy was recognised at the 2020 PIA Queensland Awards for Planning Excellence. PIA stands for Planning Institute of Australia, receiving a Commendation Award for Improving Planning Processes and Practices category. This award recognises initiatives that takes planning policy and strategy into practice and in doing so achieves a great planning outcome. The Sunshine Coast is a region of choice, and the Environment and Livability Strategy aims to ensure a good quality of life is enjoyed by all residents. The strategy's vision is to retain our natural landscape, distinctive character and much-loved way of life. In 2017, the Environment and Livability Strategy replaced 6 key long-term strategies to provide an integrated approach across multiple themes to shape and support growth over the next 25 years to deliver a healthy environment and livable Sunshine Coast. These approaches are seen in current projects such as the Blue Heart, which I just spoke about, the Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy, the Biodiversity Reports, the Sunshine Coast Design Book, the Biosphere Nomination, the Interurban Break Recreation Plan and Placemaking Master Plans. Now in its 4th year of implementation, the strategy continues to deliver on its objectives and is a great example of forward-thinking and transformational actions taking advantage of opportunities today, while looking ahead to 2041 to create the legacy that will benefit our community for many years to come. It is with great pleasure that on behalf of Council I present to Dave Moore the PIA Commendation Award for improving planning processes and practices.
We'll now move on to Councillor Law for the Sunshine Coast Community Strategy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you, good morning, councillors, acting CEO and staff. I'm really excited to inform you that the Sunshine Coast Community Strategy has won the award for Public Engagement and Community Planning category in the Planning Institute of Australia Awards for Planning Excellence. The Sunshine Coast Community Strategy 2019 to 2041 represents the culmination of 18 months of innovative collaboration between the Council, our community organisations and government, and has been recognised for creating a shared social vision for the region and exploring prioritising social challenges, developing relationships to support further engagement and partnerships, generating cooperation for collective action. The Sunshine Coast Community Strategy sets a vision with 5 outcome areas, guiding principles and methods for how we will achieve our goal of a strong community. Most importantly, the community strategy was built with our community and sets a framework for how we will continue to work together and achieve our vision of a strong community altogether. Thank you and well done to everyone involved.
Thank you. Congratulations, team. Our final presentation is Councillor O'Prey for the Sunshine Coast Airport expansion. Thank you, Councillor.
Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, this is a great one, so I'm really excited about this one. This is a real win for the A team, for the good guys, for the Built Infrastructure team, led by Tom Jamieson. The Built Infrastructure team, often referred to as the Chicago Bulls of the Built Infrastructure, or the more world-famous team, the Scottish Bushrangers, I think they're called, the soccer team. No one's ever heard of them. Mr Mayor, this award today is about the best project of the year in Queensland. And this one here is for the best project of the year, over $10 million. And this is to our Sunshine Coast Airport expansion project. The Institute of Public Works Engineering Australia, Queensland, is the peak body representing those working the public works sector in Queensland. This is a prestigious award that the project and council should feel very, very proud and honoured to receive. The award recognises council's successful delivery in its largest infrastructure project to date and the largest aviation project delivered by any local government in Queensland. And my notes here say aviation project, but I'm going to question that. I don't think, in my opinion, that there's been a bigger project by a local government in Queensland ever. It's extraordinary what we've delivered. This magnificent project, the Sunshine Coast Airport Expansion Project, is the most momentous project Council has ever been involved in and is likely to be involved in again. I was extremely proud to stand alongside Ross Allman, the project director, on June 14 to watch the first plane land, the Alliance Airlines plane land. Mr Mayor, you were there that day as well. We were all soaking wet, sopping wet, and we got the selfie to prove it, didn't we, Ross? It was a great day. Congratulations. It's a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for our community and will be a significant highlight in the history of the Sunshine Coast. There have been many notable milestones across the course of the project, which has seen around 1.3 million cubic metres of sand brought in from the Spitfire Channel. And another great day I spent with Ross Allman. We were out on the barge that was bringing back all that sand from the Spitfire Channel. It was extraordinary. It was an unbelievable experience to get out there and see just how much sand was coming back and forth to Maroochydore 3 times a day for a number of weeks. It was incredible. Mr Mayor, this project was delivered ahead of time, on schedule and under budget, despite the significant challenges, which was with PFAS and that extreme weather, that Scottish weather that we had that put all that water onto our runway, which caused massive delays. We still managed to get in and become on time and under budget. And of particular significance in the airport delivery was the outstanding safety culture. This culture was driven by the heads and the project team itself. The safety production was achieved throughout the production lifespan during over 1.1 million work hours. So think about that for a second, 1.1 million work hours, and we had 0 lost time to injuries. None, 0. So that's a huge credit to you guys. Thank you very much. The Sunshine Coast Airport Expansion Project, now that it's won this, will progress through to the international conference, all right? And it will be held in Adelaide in 2021, which we're going to win it. We're absolutely going to win it. I'm confident of that. It's an extremely evident in the way that this has been delivered. Mr Mayor, I'd like to congratulate 2 people, particularly Ross Allman, who's been through the thick and the thin of it. I've been side by side with him through all the community engagements, right from the very start, right to the very end when we had the first plane land. Ross, mate, you're a wonderful man, you're a wonderful officer of council, and you ought to be congratulated. And I'd also like to thank Tom Jamieson, who the Andy Murray of Built Infrastructure. He's done an extraordinary job with his team. There's too many to mention. There's probably 200 people in council that have been involved in this, and to see it actually happen, and we're off and we're out of the ground now, it's extraordinary. And I want to just say on behalf of council, gentlemen, we're very, very proud, so please pass my congratulations on to your teams. Mr Mayor, I'd like to invite you up for a photo.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. I wonder if I have to declare my Scottish ancestry amongst all that. Yeah, yes. Ah, yes. Sorry, oh yeah, okay.
Deliver this at no cost to taxpayers. I think that was the clincher.
I normally do them individually, so I'll do that. Councillors, we'll just need to take a vote on those. So the first item is moved by Councillor Suarez, seconded by Councillor O'Prey. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Second item, moved Councillor Suarez, seconded by Councillor Natoli. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Third item, moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Suarez. All those in favour? It's carried. And the final item, moved by Councillor O'Prey, seconded by Councillor Hungerford. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move now to item 8.1, which is the Sunshine Coast Council Annual Report. And Bill Hadra will give us details on the report. Thank you, Bill.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's consideration and adoption of the Sunshine Coast Council Annual Report for 2019-20. Preparation of the annual report is a statutory requirement of the Local Government Act 2009 and provides all information required by the Act and the Local Government Regulation 2012. The annual report 2019-20 presents information on the implementation of Council's corporate and operational plans over the past financial year, 1 July 2019 to 30 June 2020, and features major achievements and highlights. The annual report itself is comprised of 4 sections. Section 1, messages from the Mayor and CEO, key statistics about our performance, our corporate structure and councillor divisions and portfolio arrangements. Section 2 highlights the achievements in delivering on the Corporate Plan 2020-24 and the Operational Plan 2019-20, and importantly aligns with the 5 goals of the Corporate Plan, being a strong community, a healthy environment, a smart economy, service excellence and an outstanding organisation. Section 3 provides the annual disclosures and presentation of mandatory information such as governance and risk management. And finally, Section 4 presents financial information, including Council's Community Financial Report and audited financial statements. It's important to note that the financial information is presented to Council through a separate report, which will be presented to today's ordinary meeting and will be included within the annual report following its adoption. Importantly, this annual report also includes a detailed section highlighting some of the measures that this Council has put in place to support our community in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The annual report shows Council's commitment to achieving our vision for the region and provides an important communication channel to keep our community and key stakeholders informed of Council's progress towards realising this vision. Pending Council endorsement here today, the annual report 1920 will be published and made available through a range of online channels, including being available for free download from Council's website. Mr Mayor, councillors, despite one of the most challenging times in recent history, the annual report for 2019-20 showcases some exceptional milestones for the Sunshine Coast, and it's recommended that this Council adopts the Sunshine Coast Annual Report 2019-20.
Thank you, Mr Hadrell. Someone prepared to move? Councillor Suarez, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Natoli. Thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Suarez? No. Are there any questions for Bill? Councillor Cox, you've got the floor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Obviously, the annual report talks about some of the councillors, our fellow council colleagues, which retired at the last election, and I just would like to pay my respect to them for the contribution that they've made to the Sunshine Coast community. In particular, Councillor Dwyer, Councillor Connolly, Councillor Mackay, Councillor Robinson and Councillor Rogerson. They were all here for significant periods of time, put in a lot of effort on behalf of their communities. And as we've just heard earlier with the presentations, those 5 councillors were part and parcel of this council, and the recognition that was announced this morning by Councillor Suarez for the Environment and Livability Strategy, Councillor Law with the Community Strategy, and also Councillor Prey with the Sunshine Coast Airport Expansion Project. Those 5 councillors had a significant role for the community, and I just wanted to acknowledge them here today because they have obviously since moved on from council, but their contribution has been significant, and I thought it would be appropriate just to recognise that here today as we deliver our 1920 annual report. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cox. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I would also just like to spend a few moments speaking in support of the adoption of this report and echo the words of Peter Cox of what we have captured in this that was the work of the previous council that we've taken through into the new council. I'm particularly excited and passionate about the community strategy that we just spoke to and was recognised with an award. But this was adopted by the council in November 2019, prior to this council commencing in April. And it is a wonderful opportunity, and it demonstrates how we will work with the community to advance our shared goal of a strong community right through to 2041. My career has been in the disability sector for 20 years, and it has been an absolute privilege to join the council to pick up a strategy ready to go to guide us for the next 20 years, supporting our community to become a really strong, cohesive and collaborative, diverse community of the Sunshine Coast. The strategy came from a genuine and authentic engagement that started out with good intent and a blank sheet of paper with one simple question: what does a strong community look like to you? The result was the Sunshine Coast Community Strategy 2019 to 2041, which outlines a vision for what our community told us they want their future to look like. Our community envisioned a place that retains what is special about the Sunshine Coast now, a community that is connected with people, places and spaces. We are inclusive, diverse and equitable. We stay true to our values as caring, resilient, safe community with opportunities for everyone to participate. The Community Strategy Leadership Group has been a significant demonstration of this. In its first few months, when it began in June of this year, the group has already successfully collaborated to combat homelessness on the Sunshine Coast, commence a program that seeks to fight racism, and extend the positive work of Council's community development team in connecting communities through our At Home in My Neighbourhood program. The community strategy demonstrates how we can reimagine the way we work with our community and to build communities where opportunities are available to us all. So as just one example from a report that contains so many incredible examples that have been awarded and recognised today, I will certainly be in support of this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I thought, again, I'd just like to raise, one, to support the officer recommendation, but two, to acknowledge the purpose of an annual report. It's our major mechanism to report back to the community and say, here, have a look, examine the body of work that this council has delivered. And I would also like to note that over the 8 or so years that I've been involved in council, the format, the graphics, the presentation, the attempt to make clear those very important reports is, I think, exceptionally well done. So, look, I commend a commendation to the team, the graphic designers, and really for the conviction that the team have in making sure that we report well and clearly to the community. A job well done.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I too would like to commend the organisation, from the leadership right down to every worker that works in the services, frontline services that we have. And as an annual report, it started off business as usual, went right through the Christmas period, got close to the election period. We had the Elton John concert, which was outstanding, and then all of a sudden COVID impacted our organisation and our community. I just want to highlight some of the key aspects of how we responded to COVID-19. Particularly like to highlight that each and every service council delivers had to respond to the changing requirements and work practices in order to ensure that they were safely delivered and programs and services that our community needed. Council established recovery plans and support measures to help everyone in our region. Here are just a few of the measures that Council put in place. There was no increase on our rates for the majority of ratepayers in 2020-21 financial year, following a $35 COVID rebate on residential and commercial properties. There was no increase to the environment, transport, heritage levies in the 2020-21 financial year. The Economic Resurgence Plan was developed and released to fast-track the region's economic recovery. We ensured our service continuity was safeguarded, and 57% of Council's workforce mobilised to working from home, keeping employees safe and able to continue servicing our community. And that was just an extraordinary effort in being able to put that in place in the short period of time that we had to do that. We strengthened our support to locally based suppliers through an updated procurement policy, which puts local businesses first. And the LIFT project, Sunshine Coast, and the Be Well and Prosper programs were released and enhanced to focus on the mental health and well-being of Sunshine Coast residents and businesses. And we all know, having talked to so many people in our community, the challenges that COVID has had on the individuals, the families, the struggles that we've had here. And I think our annual report does certainly reflect on how well we've been able to deal with that challenge and how well we respond. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Natoli. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and it's great to talk about the achievements of councillors and the council, but the hard workers out on the ground, being the staff, have delivered some fantastic outcomes. And I've just written down a few stats out of the annual report which I thought we would touch on. Council staff have delivered 96% of the capital works program for the year, sealed over 92 kilometres of roads. So we talk about roads in the region. I actually think we have some of the best roads in Australia. If you drive around the Sunshine Coast, and I've been in many places overseas and even Washington DC, and their roads are terrible. Absolutely terrible roads. And when you come back to a place like Australia, the Sunshine Coast, and our roads are fantastic. You just drive around and you can see that 92 kilometres of roads resurfaced. In terms of customer feedback, we've actually got 4.72 out of 5 as our score for feedback, and we had over 260,000 interactions. That's one every 30 seconds with a person on the Sunshine Coast, a resident. And that might be to do with planning inquiries, development, plumbing, building, frontline rates inquiries, pets, registration, you name it. Our front centre staff do so well. And for me, it's one part of the organisation that I never get any negative feedback about. Customer service, they absolutely nail it, and they do a fantastic job for this region. Stormwater, over $7 million was spent over 63 local projects, so local stormwater projects. A few examples, I've had local streets in my division that were having flooding issues, and we did some design work and fixed up local stormwater flooding. The staff care about that because people's homes and property are at danger, and we react to that quite quickly. Development Eye, for those of you who don't know, we've got a Development Eye system online. You can go online and look up everything to do with planning and development on the Sunshine Coast. You can put your local address in and find out what developments are proposed, what the planning scheme says. You can be notified. It empowers you to find out what is happening in the region. We actually won an award for that, national award last year. I mean, fantastic stuff. And that adds to the awards that we've received here today. On a local level, the annual report talks about the councillors' discretionary grant process, and we do local grants for community groups. In Division 6, I was lucky enough to sign off on over $50,000 of grants to some groups such as Wildlife Sunshine Coast, Legacy Sunshine Coast, 20 Seabird Rescue, the Budrum Men's Shed and Steps Charity. For me, it's about the community groups that are out there doing the hard work and helping those most disadvantaged, and I'll continue to back them. An interesting thing as well, Mr Mayor, and Councillor Joe talked about the work we did during COVID. It might sound like such a small thing, but did anyone realise that most of our toilet blocks didn't have soap dispensers in them? Did you know that? The staff actually got out there and put soap dispensers in just about every toilet, every bathroom facility on the Sunshine Coast. Probably something we should have had in there before COVID, but the staff respond so quickly. They didn't make any song and dance about it. They got out there and did the job and made it happen. And, you know, it's those small things that are received very well by our ratepayers. At the end of the day, Mr Mayor, all of this was done, like Councillor Joe said, with a $0 increase on rates. And for that, it means good value for our local residents. Well done to the organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillors, this is my 9th annual report, and I'm very proud to be delivering it here today and updating our residents and ratepayers on just what we are doing. It's fair to say this report has been delivered in the most unusual of circumstances. The 2019-2020 year has been a year of challenges on a scale that we've not previously envisaged in our lifetimes. We saw horrendous bushfires and intensive storms in the latter part of 2019, which impacted residents across our region. But by late January, COVID-19 virus had been detected in Australia, and by March, national public health directions to keep communities safe and prevent the risk of transmission had effectively shut down many Australian communities. Ours was not an exception. Our Sunshine Coast was by no means immune, with 76 confirmed cases of COVID-19 detected in our council area at June 30. Our Sunshine Coast, our community as a region and as part of the state of Queensland was certainly very disciplined and very determined as we sought to bring the pandemic and the risks of community transmission under control. but the impacts on our residents and our region's economy has been both unprecedented and profound, which means governments at all levels have had to do more heavy lifting. By investing in the rebuild and providing the confidence that is needed to encourage the private sector to do likewise. And that's exactly what our council, our Sunshine Coast Council, has done. We've offered a wide variety of assistance and stimulus measures to community organisations and to local business. We moved quickly in March, and we've continued to do so as we've always seek to put our community best interests first. I regularly say that confidence is the greatest gift that any level of government can give to their community, and that, I think, has never been more true than in the current environment. Our council knows that it's incumbent on us to bring confidence back into the lives of our residents, our local businesses, our industries and those people elsewhere who are looking for a great place to have a holiday. As we seek to recover from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, our council has left no stone unturned as we fulfil our role as guardians for the well-being of our broader community. Our council has taken every opportunity to assist our residents with their recovery efforts, enabling them to get back to using council facilities and services, and priming our regional economy for local businesses so they can also rebuild. More than anything else, what we have focused on is keeping our staff safe, and that's been a real priority, seeing our residents back into their jobs, our community organisations and local businesses doing what they do best, and our Sunshine Coast being back on track as a healthy, smart and creative region. The last 8 years of prudent and disciplined fiscal management means our council is well placed to play a part and assist in these unprecedented times. And yes, that has resulted in a comparatively small deficit at June 30 this year, much to the regret of Councillor Hungerford, but our community will understand. But we've not taken those steps to support our community and to keep our residents safe and support local businesses to recover, then the consequences of our region could have been a much deeper and longer lasting and indeed harder to turn around set of circumstances. And councillors, as you're aware, we forecast to return to surplus in the current financial year. And that's something that neither of the federal or state governments would be able to lay claim to. So our disciplined approach to financial management will see us continue to be well positioned in the future while we continue to work hard to support the region bounce back from the impacts of the pandemic. Whilst 2020 will always be remembered as a year of COVID, there are many other truly significant initiatives that our council has delivered this year, and they will underpin both the future livability and prosperity of the Sunshine Coast region. 2020 is a year in which the Sunshine Coast's international connectivity, both physically and virtually, took a giant quantum leap forward. On June 12, our council handed over the new international standard runway and associated facilities of the Sunshine Coast Airport, a project that will provide our region with a direct gateway to a wider range of Australian and international locations. In March, the Sunshine Coast International Broadband Network was commissioned, providing the fastest data and telecommunications transmission from the eastern seaboard of Australia to Asia, right from our Sunshine Coast. This marks the first direct international communications connectivity for Queensland to many global destinations. Both of these projects provided an intergenerational dividend and will help to reshape our economy in the years and decades ahead. In November 2019, we adopted our Sunshine Coast Community Strategy, which Councillor Law has already referred to, for 2019 to 2041, which provides a framework to build on our values and shape a community which is healthy, vibrant, inclusive, connected, resilient and creative. With its vision of Together We Thrive, the strategy provides an enduring platform for our council and our community to work together to advance our common goal of a strong community. This year, more than $5 million was awarded to our council, by our council to not-for-profit organisations and individuals such as environmental landholders as a significant social investment in our region. Council also recognised the many community groups that have been doing it tough since the commencement of the pandemic, so we increased our grants program to include an additional COVID-19 community response grant to assist community groups in urgent financial need to help sustain them to continue the important work they do. In response to an increase in the incidence of homelessness during the pandemic, our council worked in partnership with local community groups and the Department of Housing and Public Works to assist more than 300 individuals and families by transforming the Sunshine Coast Stadium into a temporary community hub. This project alone, with the community sector and the tiers of government working together to help some of our most vulnerable in the community, was a very real example of how our vision of Together We Thrive can become a reality. Our environmental livability strategy continued to be one of our council's highest priorities during the year. Our council acquired a further 4 properties, which adds a further 90 hectares of environmental land to council's conservation estate of over 7,308 hectares. We announced and progressed our Australian first Blue Heart initiative, as outlined earlier by Councillor Suarez, for 5,000 hectares of publicly and privately owned land on the Maroochydore River floodplain, which is just one component of our council's extensive array of actions to further strengthen the region's response to climate change. And on behalf of our community, council progressed the nomination for our region to be recognised by UNESCO as an international site of excellence, known as a biosphere, a place where responsible development and people living sustainably sits alongside our active conservation. This is just a snapshot of what we have done this year, and in the midst of everything else, we've had the 2020 local government elections. And I'd like to, as Councillor Cox indicated, I'd like to acknowledge and thank all of my fellow councillors, those currently serving, and those who formed part of the council up until March 28, for their work in supporting our efforts and in representing the interests of our community. I also wish to recognise and thank our acting CEO, Mr Warren Bunker, and our council staff, whose commitment, innovation and agility has been exceptional in what has been an incredibly challenging and difficult year. While many challenges were confronted, our staff consistently placed a high priority on supporting our community, and for that, I know we are all grateful. Most importantly, I want to thank our community, our residents, our community organisations, and our local businesses who have done a fantastic job in responding to the challenges of the pandemic and the associated public health restrictions. They've done a truly magnificent job, and I know that as a council, when we continue to work with our community, together we truly do thrive. Thank you. If there are no further speakers, I'm going to go back to Councillor Suarez if she'd like to close.
and other matters, a significant deficiency needs to be resolved straight away, and they were. A deficiency, timely manner, and they were. And all the other matters, we can choose whether we take that on board or not, but we usually do, and in this case we did. Now, those deficiencies and significant deficiencies, they related to our new payroll system. They were all resolved straight away. It was really quite timely that the auditors were here and they could identify things during the implementation that we could resolve on the spot. The deficiency from the prior year, that's a good news story, even though deficiency doesn't sound like good news. It was originally a significant deficiency, and that related to the delays we were experiencing in recording contributed assets from our developers. Now, we receive about $100 million worth every year, and sometimes there are delays in us getting those onto the books. Now, last year we had about, $30 million that was late. This year we got that down to $3 or $4 million. So the Queensland Audit Office were really pleased with the progress we made. And when I say we, not just finance, people right across the organisation that deal with the developers and the developers themselves. So they've downgraded that to a deficiency, but they're going to keep watching us to make sure we don't go backwards again. We had to make it clear we'll never be perfect in this space because we are relying on external people, but that was a great improvement. Now, in terms of financial reporting issues, we don't have any whatsoever, which we're really proud of because we did have to implement 3 new accounting standards this financial year. Now, the Community Financial Report is also due for adoption today, and that's my attempt at making clear what's in the financial statements. I hope we've succeeded with that for the community to understand what it all means. This will be adopted along with the financial report, and that will be included in the annual report. We also provide Sun Central Maroochydores annual report. They are also audited by the Queensland Audit Office, and they also received an unmodified audit opinion. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Janine. Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Winston, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor?
Through you, Mr Mayor, another strong result for us in a very difficult year. Now, the financial statements have been audited by Council's external auditors, the Queensland Audit Office, to ensure accounting and legislative compliance. Now, the Audit Office has issued an unmodified opinion. That's for the 12th year in a row. We must have a record for local government. But an unmodified audit is the highest accolade you can get. For an organisation to get one's an achievement, but 12 in a row, I think our community should really recognise the strength of our management. And not only that, our financial team in council, for those statements and audited papers to get that unmodified audit year after year from the Queensland Audit Office is a great achievement. We have very talented staff in this council. Now, these results will be included in the annual Auditor General report to Parliament on the results of local government audits for the whole of Queensland. These will be published in February 2021, and I think Sunshine Coast can be very proud of its record of all the 77 local authorities in Queensland. Now, in consolidation, the Council's interest in its wholly owned subsidiaries, Sun Central Maroochydore Proprietary Limited, Sunshine Coast Event Centre Proprietary Limited, and its associate Uniwater are included in these statements, and shows every entity has a clean bill of health in its accounting. So with that, I put it to you, councillors, we can be very proud of this, we can be proud of our staff, but we have got challenges. As can be seen before, a $9 million hit COVID put on our budget last year and put us into a small deficit situation. To get ourselves back into surplus again will take considerable effort, and we'll have to make some tough decisions. But I believe we're capable of that, and it'll be our ability to do that will determine where we end up in 5 years' time. So this next budget will be very important, but we're in a very strong base to start that from, and I'm convinced that we can achieve it. So, councillors, another excellent result, and we should all be proud of it.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. other than to say, as in an earlier part of my career, for a substantial number of years, I belonged to and ran an organisation which was subject to very stringent audits every year. So I understand the value of auditing processes, and also I understand just how much work goes into ensuring that an organisation gets a clean bill of health when it comes to the audit, whether it be financial or any other aspect. And I'd like to, on behalf of the community, congratulate our CEO, acting CEO, ELT, and all of the people that support them to achieve such a great result. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. No further speakers. I'll go back to Councillor Hungerford to close. Not necessary. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll now go back to item 8. Thank you, Janine. Go back to item 8.2, which is the quarterly progress report. And I'm going to pass to Warren to present that report. Thank you, Acting CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to start by thanking everybody on the Sunshine Coast for working together to manage the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's because of this we've seen great outcomes in terms of our health, safety and wellbeing across the area. So in presenting this quarterly report, I just want to be clear that we undertook a range of COVID-safe plans, as mentioned earlier, and our ability to adapt and transition to the new normal has placed the region in a prime position for our recovery going forward. Our region has been open to visitors who are choosing to holiday on the Sunshine Coast and explore our wonderful exercises and sample some of our local businesses and enjoy our way of life. As some southern states continue to work hard to control the COVID outbreaks, Council supported a number of national codes and teams by offering our first-class facilities as a means of training and play. Among these was the National Rugby League team and now 2020 premiers, the Melbourne Storm, affectionately known to us as the Sunshine Coast Storm. In July, the Storm temporarily relocated to the Sunshine Coast to train, and we hosted 6 games in August and September at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. The exposure of these events alone provided great opportunities for the region, contributing to our local economy by stimulating extra trade for local suppliers, as well as providing some social benefits for those who are able to go and watch these particular matches. A number of initiatives have also been progressed during this quarter in relation to our local businesses to aid them to recover from the impacts of COVID. The provision of business signages, information resources to local businesses, and the delivery of professional advice support programs really helped out many of our local businesses through this difficult period. Our new Chief Executive Officer, Emma Thomas, was announced in September and commences in the role in just over a week's time. I welcome Emma to the role and look forward to working with her as she leads this outstanding organisation to continue to serve the community with excellence and to position the region in the best way for the future. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody that's aided me in relation to the Acting CEO role. It's been a very rewarding and enjoyable time over the last 9 months. And lastly, as we settle into the new way or the new normal under the public health restrictions, and safety and wellbeing of our community and employees remains at the forefront for everybody here, we'd like to continue to navigate the situation before us, seek out opportunities and plan for the future as we progress towards our vision for Australia's most sustainable region, healthy, smart and creative. I'd now like to pass over to our group executives to give you some insights into what has been achieved over the last quarter. So, Chris.
Thanks, Warren. Mr. Mayor, through you, councillors, good morning. Councillors, I was to speak to our healthy environment goal this morning, but Councillor Suarez has done an excellent job in providing a really good understanding of what we have achieved in the last quarter. But I'll just touch on a couple of other things. But before I do, there's a couple of points I'd just like to make. The effort we make every day is in achieving our healthy environment goal is either little or big. Every day. We have volunteers out there who remove weeds, or we realise a finalisation of environmental acquisition. So significant things from the small to the large. That effort, councillors, is fundamentally underpinned by a whole of organisation contribution and a partnership with our community, and it is fundamentally based on innovation. So we've heard about Blue Heart, great awards that have just been recognised this morning, but I'll touch on a couple of other things that happened over this last quarter. So the first stage of the Maroochydore River groin renewal project, councillors, was finalised in the first quarter. Now, this was an extensive project with 1,800 geotextile containers that were placed at the Maroochydore River mouth. Councillors, this is as far as we know, this is the only project of its type using that type of material in such a high energy environment. And the reason that it is there today is because council committed to community engagement, research, innovative design and delivery and partnerships. Moving on from there, councillors, in the last quarter, I'm really pleased to see that out of the COVID stimulus grants, we received from the state government, Works for Queensland, $1.3 million to be invested in the Sugarbag Road mountain bike hub. Councillors, this is a significant project in itself because it builds on the really important partnership that we had with Corker, the mountain bike group that works out there, but it now starts to develop that as a true hub for skills development, for recreation facilities. It also provides for, to some degree, very appropriate commercial opportunities for bike hire, bike maintenance and even some refreshments. But again, it wouldn't be possible without the partnership with our Corker group out there. So councillors, it would be remiss of me to not again acknowledge in achieving our healthy environment goal the efforts of all of our volunteers, our private landholders and our not-for-profit groups that partner with council. So councillors, I'd like to now hand over to Greg Laverty, our Group Executive for Economic and Community Development, to take us through some of the highlights from a smart economy. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, and through you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, from an economic perspective, I start with the Economic Resurgence Task Force. It met 3 times in the quarter, and some of the focus areas included retail activation, digital upskilling, and also connecting the community with jobs. So it might seem a strange thing to say, but at the moment in certain sectors, particularly hospitality, employers are looking for employees. There's a shortfall and there are plenty of vacancies at the moment. So we're doing some work in that space about connecting employees and employers with those opportunities. There were some good signs in relation to recovery from the economy. We had a significant return to our holiday parks. We had about $4.5 million worth of revenue during the quarter, which is a good start for both the economy, the retail and hospitality parts of our economy, but also for council's revenue as well. So that was good signs. And despite 11 major events being cancelled during the quarter, there were 13 events that generated about $14 million in economic benefits and saw about 22,000 visitors come to the region. A couple of the good things about responding to COVID was there's a significant blurring of the line between the economy and the community for some of the services that council delivered. The Horizon Festival was one of those. It was probably the first major festival in Australia that moved to an online delivery mechanism. So through that, there were quite a number of local artists who were kept engaged. There were production services, there were videography services that were engaged by those artists to deliver those online events. And certainly it provided some opportunities and some upskilling for our artists and our creative industry as well. The Mayor touched on it, but again, the Sunshine Coast Stadium, so it went from, in a very short space of time, from providing services to homeless people on the Sunshine Coast to being able to meet the requirements of the COVID Safe Plan and host 6 NRL games. So that was a fantastic achievement to meet those requirements and actually be able to both respond to community and economic and sporting needs as well. And certainly, obviously, tomorrow night we'll see the State of Origin for the women played out at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. So that's a fantastic achievement for the Sunshine Coast to get that. Again, in the sporting vein, AFL teams come here, and again, COVID-safe requirements. The needs of AFL teams were accommodated at the Maroochydore Multisport Complex. We had a number of Lightning teams here, and the Caloundra Indoor Stadium again responded, and were able to house some of those teams for training events here. And I guess just to finish, and particularly important because it's NAIDOC week this week, there was a workshop held for First Nations artists. We saw some great outcomes from that. We'll see some of the artwork come for our next wrap that's currently being developed, but also for a range of other corporate material that we'll use into the future. So that work with the artists, the First Nations and our community team was a real highlight for the quarter. So Mr Mayor, that's it for me for the economic and community. So I'll hand over to Tom Jamieson to talk about community and then do the next portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Mayor, councillors, thank you. Just to give a brief update on the transport aspects of the community portfolio. As you've already heard, there's a huge amount and extensive progress on a whole range of projects and initiatives within the transport portfolio. I would like to, and we, on behalf of the team, would like to thank the Deputy Mayor for his leadership, support and advocacy within the transport portfolio. The transportation programme is sitting at a healthy 18 million delivery for this year out of 66 million. And well advanced for its delivery this year. Just some brief highlights within that transportation capital programme. Coimbra Road, a 4.9 million project, 1.8 kilometres in length, and overall providing a 2-lane sealed road and on track for completion in February. The Parklands Boulevard, an LGIP project, 16 million upgrade project, has progressed significantly and is now in its final stages, and we all aim to bring this in just after Christmas. Moving on to some network planning works that we're doing in Sippy Downs, which is, as we know, seeing significant growth. Ourselves and TMR are undertaking a joint approach to deliver the best transport outcomes for there. And we're looking now at developing a memorandum of understanding for that as agreed for Caloundra. Council has also sought to establish a framework for effectively sequencing the delivery of transport infrastructure across the region through the development of a transport infrastructure sequencing plan. This plan aims to provide a holistic view of infrastructure delivery and sequencing across the region by considering planned and committed investment at council, state and federal levels, and including the private sector. This is required by June next year and achieving one of the visions of the Integrated Transport Strategy. The Kenilworth Community Transport Service, after completing a trial in 1920, has had its service expanded from 616 properties to over 1,600 properties. And from an original 6.5 kilometre radius from the Kenilworth Post Office is now including 8 proximity localities. The programme was fully supported by Council and the uptake is already showing great signs and very promising. Finally, as we've heard, the airport expansion project secured 2 awards and the project team very grateful in terms of those awards. Ross did touch on it, and I would like to echo the sentiments that the project could not have been done without council support, and particularly certain councillors, Jason O'Prey, if I could call you out, please, that throughout the life of the project, the support and knowing that council is fully behind the project and fully engaged has been has been really helpful for that whole project team, so we'd really like to recognise that council support. That concludes my update from a community portfolio, and I will just move into the service excellence portfolio. James Rupre and I are the group executives representing that. James is currently on leave, so I will do the briefing there. We're currently developing a service excellence strategy. Thank you to Councillor Johnston and Councillor Dixon for your support and engagement in that process and the portfolio generally. In Q1, just some of the highlights, over 2,718 building approvals, almost $400 million. Council service provided to 82,000 customers through the pandemic with a customer experience management program, including the ongoing rollout of the relationship management program. Online chats in Q1 exceeded over 1,000 interactions for the first time in August, with emails now accounting for over 30% of all inquiries. Development Services has implemented the planning scheme code checklist and 3 defined assessment streams to support process improvements. Palmview's planning details are displayed online, providing specifics in the fact sheet planning for the new Palmview community. Local amenity and local laws are adapting to the post-COVID world, focusing now on rescheduling or redesigning events and choosing education rather than penalties in local laws, with only 12% of notices being infringement, the rest all warnings. Public Health, partnered with Queensland Health, continues to educate on easing restrictions on licensed premises, and Q1 saw almost 300 information sessions taking place from a total of 600 this year. In the waste and resource management area, we coordinated over 200,000 domestic vehicle collection services completed within 7 days, with less than half of the collection vehicles after a technical flaw affected 2/3 of the fleet. Property management has seen a significant volume of maintenance and capital works during the COVID period and have worked hard on supporting our local suppliers. Confirm, the asset management solution is nearing completion of Phase 2, which will see Council for the first time having one asset register for 360,000 of its assets, one work order and one work scheduling system, with already the team seeing 42,000 work orders just from July alone going through now the Confirm system. Core services continue to be delivered by our field and customer-facing teams throughout the whole COVID restrictions. In parks and civil asset management alone, over 40,000 work orders have been processed just in Q1 alone. And finally, just like to make a quick mention for our quarries. Their high production levels are now servicing 100% of our road reseal programs and many of Council's internal projects. And in Q1, we saw over $1 million worth of internal and external sales. So that's it from a service excellence perspective. And I'd like to just hand over to Michael Costello, who will talk about outstanding organisation.
Thanks, Tom. Through you, Mr Mayor. Outstanding organisation portfolio. We've heard in the previous report about the great result about the unmodified audit opinion, the 12th consecutive year of an unmodified audit opinion, so it's a great result. On the purchasing side, there was $66 million, which represents 69% of Council's total purchasing spend for the quarter went to local businesses. We adopted the procurement and contracting framework in the first quarter. The framework encompasses the required aspects to provide effective procurement management, governance and legislative compliance relating to procurement, contract and supply functions. And throughout COVID, we adopted an early payment for creditors, so that has continued. So we continued to pay our creditors within 7 days. That pumps around about $8 million a week into the local economy of cash that would otherwise would have to wait for another month. On the HR space, we've still managed to offer 28 offers of employment for the first quarter. And on safety, we've had a comprehensive safety services continue to be delivered throughout COVID-19, including risk assessments, development of COVID safe plans, implementation of controls, attending to mental health and extensive consultation and communication. It's been an ongoing review of the improvement of the safety management system, and that's continued, including responding to incidents and risks. Our Council's partnering with the University of the Sunshine Coast to deliver a leadership program, leading high-performing teams, and we've actually undertook a pilot program throughout the COVID-19 in the last quarter of last financial year. On property management, Tom mentioned about the property management works being undertaken. So we progressed a significant volume of maintenance and capital works to support the local supplier base and take advantage of vacant sites to undertake otherwise disruptive works. And building condition assessments have commenced on Council's own facilities, and they'll fully inform future capital work programs and planning. The Sunshine Coast City Hall, we had the turning of the first sod on the 12th of August 2020. The project's estimated to support about 300 jobs in the construction and supply chain industries over the life of the project. And finally, Mr Mayor, the Brisbane Road car park construction works have now reached the roof level, with the roof structure currently being installed, and the project remains on schedule for completion and opening in mid-December. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Back to you, Warren. Do you want to wrap up? Nothing more? Okay. Can I have a councillor move the report, please? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Babarowski, thank you. You'd like to speak to the report, councillor?
There's a lot of highlights in this report, and I'm sure there'll be others to bring in there, so I'll take some of those. Council allocated $5.5 million to our lifeguards to help keep more than 20 areas across our coastline safe. This investment includes the start of the new Boccarina Beach Lifeguard Tower, as well as a number of new seasonal patrols. $1.4 million was allocated through 200 community grants to support a range of projects and activities contributing to the achievement of Council's vision for the region. And the extra money we put into the grants program this year certainly did help our community during the COVID impacts. More than 81,400 customers were assisted through the development of the customer contact centres, and that's been consistent even through storms and things like that. Now, Council received 4 awards for this quarter, including Development Eye, won the Improving Planning Process and Practices Award. Council's Migrant Work Ready program won the Multicultural Australia category. The Sunshine Coast Design Book was the winner of the Gold Award at the Good Design Australia Awards. And the Sunshine Coast Sports Infrastructure Plan 2019-41 took out the award in the Strategic Planning category at the Parks and Leisure Association Queensland Chapter Awards. Now, in our annual report, we just saw the organisation receive 30 awards for the last year, and look, this morning we had 5 more. It shows this organisation is achieving goals across the board, and I think our community can be proud of that. I will leave it at that because I'm sure there's many more there that others would like to point out, but we are achieving consistently, and we've got to keep that going.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Dixon.
Yes, Mr Mayor. 2 quick points if I can. Firstly, we went through COVID, and obviously the impact on locals was severe and still is. And I remember most of us, if not all of us, when we got elected, we all talked about wanting to be a caring and compassionate council. And the only way you can do that is actually to lead by example. You can't just talk about it, you need to show people. A note that I just took from Mr Jamieson was that out of our total engagement in local laws, we only issued 12% fines. That's amazing. You actually think about the engagement we have with residents, and top 5 issues as a councillor for me is generally verge parking, infringements, dogs off leash, all those type of things. You see them every day, but I haven't. It's as if we're changing our approach, and I'm not sure if that's a direction from councillors or the good work that Mr Bunker has done. But the organisation is changing, it is evolving, and it's adapting to our people, the people we serve. 88% were warnings. 88% of our engagements. That's just enormous. I think that's credit to council, because that means we're getting out there and we're educating and showing people how to do things in a better way. The second point, Mr Mayor, was a thank you to Patricia Jensen and the Development Services team. When I took over Palmview and Harmony as part of Division 6 at the recent election, it was pretty tough going in there, because for the first time I had this brand new residential community, and there wasn't much engagement from council, just in terms of what the goalposts were around parks, dog off leash areas, sporting fields, road access. And I won't name names, but a number of, I guess some misinformation or disinformation was circulated from developers in the area and people selling homes, that certain expectations would be met. And one of my greatest issues I had was that people buying in, and I'm talking hundreds of people who have contacted me, Mr Mayor, hundreds, were told that they would have a Bruce Highway access open from Palmview to the Bruce Highway in 2020. They said we got told that by the developers, the sales agents. We got told that we'll have a highway access in 2020. The truth is, and I knew it because I bought in there in 2018, I knew that that road didn't open until 2022 in June. I knew that. I did my due diligence. But a lot of people trusted the information they were given. So Patricia actually did a fantastic job and put together a fact sheet. So we actually developed the first development fact sheet that I've ever seen, and it details all the commonly asked questions and answers from the community, and we've put it online. And not only did we do that, Patricia helped me circulate that to every home in the development area. So everyone has the facts now. Mr Mayor, I guess the point I'm getting at is that we have this wealth of knowledge. We understand infrastructure agreements, development approvals, and we've got the information, but I think there's room for us to do a little bit better in communicating with the community about expectations that they do or don't have in their estate. Really, it was just a thank you, and I think Patricia has set the bar there because we're doing that for Palmview and Harmony. I'm sure there's going to be more questions as the other two landowners develop in the area. More or less a thank you, and I think that's a bit of room for improvement that we're stepping into.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I just wanted to amplify a very good point Group Executive Levati made about the Horizon Festival and its transition from basically a physical event, analogue, to a digital platform. And that was bold. Festival should be bold. And we were really early in understanding that we needed to move it to a digital platform. Now, I don't want to take any thunder away from the report on the Horizon Festival that will inevitably come to Council. But in a conversation I had with the Director the other day, let me reassure you that despite the success of the 219, with about 31,000 people attending that festival, the reach of the 2020 festival will far exceed that. And that's all I wanted to say, is that that was a bold move. It had risk to it, but we took that risk on, and I look forward to that report where you'll hear the details of just how much we achieved on a digital platform for the Horizon Festival. And I'd certainly like to again thank Greg Levati and the team for having the courage to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. Councillor Cox.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm rising to speak to our corporate goal of a healthy environment. And I just wanted to reiterate something that Councillor Suarez said earlier about before she was elected, she didn't really understand a lot of what Council actually did. With what we've heard this morning through both our annual report and now our quarterly progress report, the breadth of projects that Council undertakes is significant. But in saying that, I just wanted to touch on the following, and it's quite appropriate given that it is NAIDOC week. But I also just wanted to inform councillors that our partnerships with our First Nation peoples have been prevalent in our bush management activities. And this included the Doonan Open Data Expo and the National Tree Day event, where we not only showcased new and innovative technology, which was used to inform our environmental management practices, but it also provided an opportunity for the Kabi Kabi to share their stories of land and plant culturally significant bunya trees. I'm also pleased to share with you that representatives from both Kabi Kabi and Jinnaburra participated in Council's Fire Crew member training at the Maroochydore Regional Bushland Botanic Gardens in July to support the traditional custodian involvement in Council's fire management practices. So, councillors, that's just one more of the amazing things that Council undertakes and something that I think our community should be aware of.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillors, just to wrap up on a couple of items, there's been some, and they relate to the report, but there have been some interest, there is interest, significant interest in the plight of homeless people during COVID. And recently I was contacted by various media outlets around challenges that existed for people in terms of, others trumping them on paying high rents or advance rent payments and the like, and that making life even more difficult for people who are struggling to put a roof over their head. You'll be aware that we established the Mayor's Round Table last year I'm delighted at the organisations involved in that, including IFYS and the Department of Housing, and a variety of other community and church groups who are participating. But one of the fundamental problems we've got is this. There's only, as a percentage of housing on the Sunshine Coast, community housing represents 2%. The state average is 3.6%. So already we're sort of halfway behind what's going on elsewhere in the state. Some will argue that's because we're a new economy, but certainly it's a point I'll be pressing with the Premier and her new cabinet around a fair go on the Sunshine Coast, where we know supply and demand is very challenged. I think we perhaps have even some bigger challenges ahead of us as JobKeeper and JobSeeker are eventually wound back, and that puts new pressures on some people who are in those situations. So that's one that we all have a responsibility for, and we've certainly got a lot of great initiatives in place, but it's not a problem that's going to go away anytime soon. And the second point I wanted to raise was, and it was in relation to conversation or commentary about the Sunshine Coast Stadium and what a great role it's played in a variety of different ways as a homeless hub and as a spectacular venue. And of course, in recent times around the state election, we've had commitments from both the major parties. I hope the Premier will be attending the game tomorrow night. But if she's not, I'll continue to reinforce with her that we need that investment in a timed way that helps us capitalise on the many opportunities that exist. I note with interest the former Tourism Minister Kate Jones was recently elected to the NRL Commission, and she's quoted this morning as saying that there is need for expansion and that the most obvious place is the northern corridor beyond Brisbane, and specifically mentioning the Sunshine Coast. Now, that's a long way from being a done deal, believe me, but it's nice to know there's someone on the NRL Commission who does have a great appreciation of what this area has to deliver, and was fundamental instrumental, I should say, in her support for the state's $20 million contribution to our expansion. So, some good news, but also some challenges. Rightio, let me go to Councillor Natali.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine relates to a series of questions that I brought up about the ordinary, about this particular item, quarterly progress report, and I did receive the information back. I won't raise these issues today, but I just wanted to inform you, Mr. Mayor, that I was very disappointed, I suppose, with some of the responses. As elected members, we ask questions and we expect to get answers, and specific answers, and not to be flirted around the edges and give, not the result and answers that we're looking for. And so I would hope that I had the opportunity to meet up with you, Mr. Acting CEO, just to talk to you about the sorts of things that I'm hoping that I and other councillors can get that information. Because it is important when we ask these questions, we want specific answers that we actually get those answers given to us without skirting around the edges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natali. Councillor Suarez.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just address Warren Bunker, I just wanted to say thank you. This is the final quarterly report, I think, under your guidance as Acting CEO, and I just wanted to say I really appreciate all the efforts that you've put forward to this council since you took on that role. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. If there are no further speakers, I'll go to Councillor Hungerford to close.
Quite simply, Mr. Mayor, this is another excellent report for Council. As though in the annual report, this report, our financial reports, unmodified audits, this council's got a long way to go, but geez, we're off to a good start at the moment. So I think this term's going to end up a very productive one that we can all be proud of. We've just got to stay the course. Excellent work, and I'll put this to you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Councillors, we come to item 8.3, and what I'm going to suggest is I know we've got some conflict issues to deal with. Suggest we deal with those first, then break for morning tea, and come back and deal with the matter after that. Happy with that? Okay, so I'll start by saying that councillors, as notified at the special meeting on 9 November 2020, I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to agenda item 8.3 at today's ordinary meeting. I will not be participating in the decision for this agenda item and will now leave the meeting for the duration of the consideration and vote on this item. For completeness, I ask that the full details of my declarable conflict of interest as notified on 9 November 2020 be included in the minutes of today's meeting. And I'll ask Councillor Babarowski if he'll take the chair and deal with the other conflict matters, and then, as I say, break for morning tea and come back and deal with the substantive matter. Thank you. You can stay there, Rick.
Make sure the chair's sanitised before you sit in it. Right.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your declaration. Councillors, we do have Councillor Winston. You have a declaration as well.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and fellow councillors. As notified at the special meeting of the 9th of November 2020, I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to agenda item 8.3 of today's ordinary meeting. I will not be participating in the decision for this agenda item and will now leave the meeting for the duration of the consideration and the vote on this item. For completeness, I ask that the full details of my declarable conflict of interest as notified on the 9th of November 2020 be included in the minutes of today's meeting. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Councillor Johnston for his declaration, and I understand there are at least two other declarations, and I believe that Councillor Landsberg has informed the meeting, as required by the Local Government Act of 2009, that he has a declarable conflict of interest in relation to matters to be considered in item 8.3.
Mayor. Councillors, under section 150EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, I wish to give notice that I have a declarable conflict of interest for agenda item 8.3. As you're aware, RPS Australia East Proprietary Limited is the planning consultant to the applicant in this matter. Mr Brad Williams is the General Manager of Planning and Development at the RPS Group on the Sunshine Coast, and he is also a member of the Wind and Sea Surf Club. Mr Williams has provided planning and development services to that club free of charge on matters that are unrelated to the development application that is being considered by Council today. The interest arises because I am a member and also President of Wind and Sea Surf Club. Councillors, while the association with Mr Williams is remote from my duties as a councillor, I'm informing you of these facts in the event that a member of the community may perceive that I have a predisposition to supporting the work of this planning consultant. That said, given the remoteness of the association and that RPS Australia East Proprietary Limited is not the applicant in this matter before Council, but rather a consultant engaged by the applicant, I am of the opinion that I can appropriately manage this conflict and participate in the discussion and vote on the matter, and in doing so, my participation will not lead to a decision that is contrary to the public interest. I acknowledge the eligible councillors must, by resolution, decide my participation or otherwise in the decision making on this matter.
I'd like to thank Councillor Landsberg for giving us some details. And may I just note that given I believe that you will have a declarable interest and that you're ineligible to participate in this, Councillor Natoli, you're aware of that? Fine. So, councillors, in accordance with section 150 ES brackets 3 brackets B brackets I of the Local Government Act 2009, I now call for a councillor to move that Councillor Landsberg either stay or leave the chamber for the duration of the discussion and the decision on this matter. So, councillors, should the majority decide it is in the public interest for Councillor Landsberg to stay in the meeting for the duration of this matter, this is a difference. Reasons for this decision will need to be recorded in the minutes. I believe you have some of the, on the screen, you'll see some of the types of reasons that may be considered. So once you've had a moment to digest those, councillors, would somebody like to move that? Councillor Landsberg, either stay or leave.
I'll nominate that he stay.
So, Councillor Cox, thank you. So, Councillor Cox is... pardon? Could you outline the reason?
The interest is not considered to be sufficient to undermine the ability of the councillor to inform an impartial view and exercise their vote in the public interest.
Thank the councillor for that. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Seconder. So, would you like to say anything more, Councillor Landsberg?
Just to you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I believe I can stay in the chamber and make a decision on behalf of this before council today. The connection is remote in terms of my position as a fellow member, and I think it has wide-ranging implications with other members of our community that want to participate in a non-for-profit group or sporting club, by that matter, and where you can disconnect your association with members to make sure you make a correct decision on the benefits of a broader community.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Suarez.
I just have a question for you, Terry, and I understand the situation we are as community members and wanting to be involved in our communities and creating this scenario now that under the new state guidelines. I just wanted to ask you a question about this particular application and your association with the planning developer. Did you just have any discussions with that person regarding this particular application?
As a councillor, I'm talking about this application before. I did have a conversation, but it was really just around the general development and the benefits to our broader community on an economic basis. And that was all the discussion centred around. If you want to ask any more questions about that. But as a consultant for the applicant, he's only a consultant. I understand that position. I don't feel that the comments made to me by Mr Brad Williams had any effect in my ability to either look at this application in the positive or in the negative.
Any other questions? Councillor Dixon.
Just on the basis of that question from Councillor Maria, and it's through to you, Councillor Terry, when you had that conversation, was it in your capacity as a councillor, in your formal role as a councillor, or was it in your volunteer role as a member of the community organisation when you had that conversation? So just asking again, was it a formal work engagement within your 9 to 5 work hours in that capacity as a general update, economic and whatnot, or was this a weekend chat separately away from work?
It was actually a conversation outside working hours, and it was just a general discussion in regards to the development and how it would benefit the broader community of Forest Glen. Did not go into any detail in regards to the impact of this in regards to the local plan out there, but my opinion was that for the benefit of this development, and obviously being the consultant, he can see it to what it can bring to that area out there. But for me, as a portfolio of economic development, I've got to understand, I feel that we need to engage with our community. And if I'm to run into a person in the public and they want to bring that to my attention as a general discussion, personally, I don't see a problem with that. And I think if we're here to make a decision, and I understand it's an extremely big decision on this development today, but it does muddy the waters in regards to our ability to connect with a broader community. And if that's going to affect our decision moving forward, if we are to talk to employees of certain companies that are building these developments, are we going to talk to contractors that are going to benefit from these developments in the future? Are we not supposed to be involved in any chit-chat? I think that's just part of our role as a community member, to listen to whether people want developments, whether they're against developments. And as a role as a councillor, I feel I need to listen to everyone and not try and separate my connections with people that I see. I can't talk to you. We've got a decision coming up for council. I understand I'm a new councillor and still finding my way, but I can honestly stand here today and give you that I will make the correct decision in regards to what I think the best interest of the broader community.
Councillors, are there any other questions? If there aren't, so we've heard some details in relation to Councillor Landsberg's interest, and you've heard the responses to... Oh, sorry, my apologies. Councillor Hungerford, question.
I'm really struggling with this one because you've spoken to someone who's working for the applicant, and the question you had of him was in directly regard to the development and whether it would be a benefit to the community. That's, to me, getting influence before the thing's been assessed independently by the planners. I understand you're wanting to do the right thing, but I'm starting to lean towards, because that could influence outside of the planning process, that it could be deemed by someone as a conflict, could influence your decision. So I'm on caution there. I probably will now back away from it being remote because it was directly in regard to the application and the assessment of it. So it's a very grey area. It's 50-50 for me, but respectfully I understand you not intending to do anything wrong, but it's the situation we're in.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Any other questions? So, councillors, you've heard Councillor Landsberg's responses to the questions, so we're now looking to... Councillor Cox move the stay motion? Yeah. So, Councillor Cox moved a stay motion. May I now ask you to vote on whether Councillor Landsberg can stay in the meeting and vote on the item. All those in favour? Councillor Cox. All those against? Councillor Dixon, Councillor Hungerford, Councillor O'Prey, Councillor Suarez, Councillor Law, Councillor Babarowski. Councillors, I think that concludes that. Councillor Landsberg, unfortunately, you're going to have to... We appreciate your honesty and openness, but it means that you will need to... Yes, you just need to leave the chamber. Councillor Natoli, I believe you have a declaration as well.
I, Councillor Natoli, notify that I may have a declarable conflict of interest in item 8.3 to be considered at the ordinary meeting on the 12th of November 2020 due to the fact that I was an employee of the Kanara Organic Marketplace prior to my election as Division 4 Councillor on the 28th of March 2020. The nature of Kanara Organic Market's interest in this matter is that it is a business located in close proximity to the Forest Glen Village Centre Plan of Development. In consideration of my declarable conflict of interest, I am of the opinion that I can participate in the discussion and vote on this matter, and in doing so my participation will not lead to a decision that is contrary to the public interest. I will be seeking Council's permission to participate in this matter at the ordinary meeting on the 12th of November 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Councillors, you've heard some of the details in relation to this matter. Councillors, in accordance with section 150 ES brackets 3, brackets B, brackets I of the Local Government Act 2009, I now call for... Sorry, Councillor Dixon.
Mr Chairman, I just ask the question, are we able to engage Councillor Natoli on questions before we decide what avenue we'd like to take?
Let me just take some advice on that. You certainly may.
Just one question for Councillor Natoli, and I'm being quite genuine when I ask this, I don't mean any malice. Have you been lobbied by Kanara in any capacity to potentially object or vote against the development application, or had any engagement about the development, impacts on business, commercial, economic, traffic, anything that might come to mind?
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Absolutely not. I've been back to Canara twice to just do a little bit of shopping, and that was very early in my term as councillor. I noticed that Canara did, or its organisation that owns Canara, the company that owns it, did not even make a submission. I have not had any discussion with anyone about this at all. The fact is that I worked at Canara. There may be a perception in the public that I might have a bias, but that's certainly not the case.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon, for your question. Councillor Hungerford.
I'll be very direct here because I'm one thing there. In this debate or decision on this today, do you have any intention of moving any amendments or any alternate motion on this one?
I'm still not. I'm toyed, and I do want to ask some questions because I believe there are possible impacts in terms of road diversions and things. I certainly accept that there probably is a need for a supermarket of some sort in the area, but ultimately, the real concern is about the catchment, the impacts on the businesses in Buderim, and as you would have read, I don't know if you had the opportunity to read some of the economic assessment in terms of the impacts.
Councillor Natoli, you're edging into speaking to the item. Would you just confine it to answering the question, which was pretty specific?
Yeah, so I specifically at this stage don't have any intention to bring any amendments whatsoever. No.
You happy with that question, that answer? Councillor Hungerford, Councillor Law.
Thank you for you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Natoli, you mentioned that there had been a change of ownership at Canara. Were you employed by the previous owners or the current owners?
I was originally employed by the original owners of Canara that went back 30 odd years, and they did sell the business to the group that owned Flannery's, and they sold that within the first 4 or 5 months. So yeah, that's who I was employed by.
Sorry, I wasn't clear. So the current owners, you weren't employed by the current owners?
Sorry, I was employed, but my employment continued. They bought the company while I was employed by the
Thank you.
company.
Thank you for that clarification. You're happy with that, Councillor Law? Any other questions? Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Councillor Joe. I just want to ask you, I guess, the same question that I asked Councillor Terry. Have you had any discussions on this particular application with the current or the previous owners of Canara?
I haven't had any discussions at all with anyone about this application. It was known for a long period of time that there was possibly a supermarket, but that was around the front end where the bakery is. So there's been discussions about possible activities in the area, but no, definitely not about this. Definitely no discussion, no lobbying, no discussions at all.
Thank you for your answer. You happy with that, Councillor Suarez? Any other questions? Thank you for your questions, councillors. So councillors, in accordance with section 150 ES3 brackets B brackets I of the Local Government Act 2009, I now call for a councillor to move that Councillor Natoli either stay or leave the chamber for the duration of the discussion and decision on this matter. Councillors, should the majority decide it is in the public interest for Councillor Natoli to stay in the meeting for the duration of this matter, again, reasons for this decision need to be recorded in the minutes. Do I have?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that Councillor Natoli may stay in the room, and that is for reason 4. The interest is not considered to be sufficient to undermine the ability of the councillor to form an impartial view and exercise their vote in the public interest.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Any questions? Councillor Cox.
Do we have the opportunity to speak to this before the vote's taken? Because this is new to all of us.
Look, if you think the matter is a substantive one, please do.
Councillors, just for the sake of consistency, we've just previously made a decision where there's been a relationship with the consultant to the applicant, and now we're deciding on a potential conflict where a councillor has been a former employee of a neighbouring property owner. To me, if you've got rid of one, you need to get rid of the other, because the consistency, based on what I've just heard, is astounding.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Dixon.
I appreciate the different views. One person was clearly linked as a key driver in this item for the development, someone who's driving the development home, and there's a clear link between the councillor and the person pushing the development. Councillor Joe has said today that he has had no lobbying or carried out no lobbying on the item. The person is an adjoining landowner who, by the way, did not raise any submission on this development application, did not object. So they've not pushed Councillor Natoli on advocating for this issue, nor did they formally object to the development application. For me, I don't believe there is anything of ill propriety at all, and I believe Councillor Joe can stay in the room.
Thank you for making the distinction from your point of view. Councillors, any other questions, as I've allowed some debate? No. In that case, we'll vote on Councillor Dixon's motion for Councillor Natoli to stay for the duration on the reason given. Oh, sorry, my apologies, and we do need a seconder. Can I call for a seconder? Councillor Suarez, thank you. So, councillors, I now put Councillor Dixon's stay motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Dixon, Councillor Suarez, Councillor Babrowski. Those against? Councillor Cox, Councillor Hungerford, Councillor Prey, Councillor Law. I think that's 4-3, isn't it? 4-3. Councillor Natoli may stay. Sorry. I was against. My apologies. My apologies. It was to leave. So, sorry, Councillor Natoli, you will need to leave. So, councillors, with that, we might break for morning tea. So, councillors, be back at, it's now 10:52. Is 11:05 sufficient time? 11:05? Thank you. So, councillors, we're good to reconvene the meeting. Councillors, I'll just check before we go into the presentation on item 8.3, the development application, including a variation request to establish Forest Glen Village Centre Plan of Development, that there are no further declarations of interest. That being the case, I'll invite Tim Mumford, assisted by Danny Rundle, to make a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. This is an application for a preliminary approval, including a variation request for a material change of use to vary the effect of the planning scheme and establish the Forest Glen Village Centre Plan of Development. It also includes a development permit component for a shopping centre, which includes a supermarket, shops and healthcare services. And there's also a development permit for operational works for bulk earthworks of the site. The application is before Council due to the variation request component, which proposes to vary the effect of the Sunshine Coast planning scheme as it affects this site. There was 6 submissions during the public notification period, all of which were in support of the application. So the subject site's located at 370 Mons Road and 15 Grammar School Way, Forest Glen. The site's made up of 3 lots and is located directly south of the Sunshine Coast Grammar School. The Grammar School Way borders the site's eastern boundary. The western boundary is bordered by Mons Road, and then Kanara Organic Marketplace is to the south of the site. The site accommodates a number of existing buildings, which includes the existing Forest Glen shops at the west, fronting Mons Road. There's also a number of industrial and commercial warehouse type uses that have established over time, also in the west and behind the shops. The site is predominantly included within the emerging community zone under the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme. However, the Forest Glen local shops are located within the local centre zone, which is blue on the plan on the screen. The purpose of the emerging community zone is to support urban development and to enable structure planning to occur for large greenfield development sites and to ensure the orderly development of these areas. This zone intends for development to be undertaken in accordance with a plan of development, which is implemented via a variation approval. So this application, therefore, follows the planning scheme's intended process for development of this area. So the Forest Glen Local Plan Code intends for this site to be developed as an expansion of the Forest Glen Local Centre. The local plan elements map identifies three main requirements to be incorporated into any development on this site. Those are a road and pedestrian linkage from Grammar School Road through the site, the retention of the character vegetation along the southern boundary of the site, maintaining a primary active frontage to Mons Road and the location of the current Forest Glen local shops. This application achieves all of those three requirements. So the preliminary approval component of this application varies the effect of the planning scheme and introduces a plan of development document to guide the assessment of all future applications lodged over the site. So that, and it relates only to the three lots party to this application. The proposed plan of development document includes a few components. Firstly, a precinct plan, which is on the screen, that identifies a total of 9 precincts across the development area. It includes maximum gross floor area allowances that apply caps to each of those precincts. It identifies the consistent, potentially consistent, and then the inconsistent uses within each precinct. And it provides a table of assessment which sets out the levels of assessment and the relevant benchmarks that apply to all future development of this site. And it also provides a new local area code that replaces the Forest Glen Local Plan Code as it applies to this site. So the development permit component of this application, it proposes a material change of use to establish a shopping centre including a supermarket, shops and healthcare services. So that's proposed within 3 buildings, with building A is a 1,500 square metre supermarket and 400 square metres of supporting tenancies. Building B is a single-storey 1,000 square metre building split into 600 square metres of retail and 400 square metres of healthcare services. And then the third building, Building C, is 2 storeys, 2,000 square metres, and it's proposed for all medical tenancies. This component also proposes to construct a new public road from Grammar School Way and then a link through to Mons Road in the west. So in relation to the key assessment considerations relevant to this application, firstly was ensuring that the proposed development aligns with the planning scheme's intent for the site as an expansion of the Forest Glen Local Centre. As part of that was ensuring that the scale of the centre is appropriate and its growth wouldn't compromise other centres in the region. The application included an economic assessment and council had that peer reviewed by an economic consultant. Those assessments determined that the identified catchment could support Forest Glen Centre being elevated from a local not full service activity centre to a local full service activity centre without impacting other centres in the region. The economic assessment also determined the floor area caps to the site to ensure that the size of Forest Glen remains appropriate as a local centre and that it doesn't grow to a scale that would start to affect other centres. It was also important to ensure the necessary infrastructure was set up front to enable the growth of the centre to occur. So fundamental to that was the delivery of the road and pedestrian connectivity through the site. And then I guess finally ensuring that a plan of development document, which will essentially become the new planning scheme for this site and regulate growth in the Forest Glen for these 3 lots into the future, was appropriate. So the application overall is consistent with the intent of the planning scheme for this location and is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mumford. Councillors, someone to move? Councillor Hungerford, someone to second? Councillor O'Prey, thank you. Councillors, comments, questions? Councillor Hungerford? Oh, sorry, my apologies. Would you like to speak to the motion? Yeah.
for those new councillors, Forest Glen has been the bane of my time as a councillor. Had a lot of constraints, a lot of traffic issues, pedestrian issues, and we worked through those over time. With the new grammar school way now in place for the grammar school, because the traffic was all coming out on the off-ramp onto the Bruce Highway, and it was a very hectic place in Forest Glen. So this is another further step in that journey of making Forest Glen functional. Now, this variation approval will act to replace the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme 2014 for any development occurring within the subject land, and enable the site to grow over time to a scale consistent with a full-service local activity centre as defined by the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme 2014. The proposal is therefore in conflict with the current planning scheme, which has zoned the majority of the site as emerging community and intends for Forest Glen to expand but to remain as a not full-service local activity centre. An economic impact assessment has been undertaken and peer-reviewed by an independent external economic consultant commissioned by Council. The assessment supports the broader use of the emerging community zone land to form an expansion of the Forest Glen Centre and elevation of it to a full-service activity centre without detrimentally impacting on other centres. And that's a very important point here. The proposed Forest Glen Centre plan of development sets maximum floor area limits for future uses to constrain growth of the centre and thereby protect the hierarchy of the activity centre network on the Sunshine Coast. The site is suitable and well located to provide for a master planned expansion of the existing Forest Glen Local Centre. The application presents an opportunity to redefine Forest Glen as a cohesive, pedestrian-friendly centre with safe access and parking arrangements. There have always been constraining problems with Forest Glen the whole time I've been a councillor. These issues have traditionally beset the constrained the centre due to its location adjacent to the Bruce Highway. The proposed development has been assessed against the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme 2014 and satisfies the requirements of the planning scheme subject to reasonable and relevant conditions, including several changes, amendments to the proposal and to mitigate any impact as outlined in this report. Now, there are some differences between the proposal and the traditional local centre zone, which are intended to recognise the unique characteristics of the site and take into account the existing uses that have established historically and will continue to operate in parts of the site. The primary differences include inclusion of a gross floor area cap to limit the size of the centre, inclusion of medium and high impact industry uses where for a microbrewery as code accessible and as a potentially consistent use on part of the site. That's already there. Inclusion of warehouse and light industry uses as code accessible on part of the site, noting that these uses are already existing on the site. Inclusion of showrooms as a consistent use and code accessible in Precinct H. And increasing the gross floor area of the supermarket to be code accessible from 1,000 square metres to 1,500 square metres. So in summary, the site is suitable and well located to provide a master planned expansion of the existing Forest Glen local centre. The application presents an opportunity to redefine Forest Glen as a cohesive, pedestrian-friendly centre with safe access and parking arrangements. And as we stated before, those issues have been traditionally a major problem with Forest Glen. So the proposed development has been assessed against the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme 2014 and satisfies the requirements of the planning scheme, subject to reasonable and relevant conditions. And those conditions are limiting the size and scope of this centre for a local activity centre. And I think this is I put this to you, councillors, it's been a long time in Forest Glen. This is just another step in getting Forest Glen to be a functional area. and I wholeheartedly, as a local councillor, support this application today.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford, and you kept perfect time. Councillor Dixon.
Firstly, congratulations to Councillor Ted. He's been working on this for as long as I can remember. It has been a very difficult project, and I say that because Forest Glen is ever-changing. There is so much change happening in Forest Glen, and I remember when the industrial commercial areas were being built and we had Canara and some changes and retrofitting to the shop spaces, and then the state and the feds are absolutely blowing up the Bruce Highway there at the moment, changing the very look and feel of that whole entry and arrival point. It's going to be tough for the existing township because they're significantly changing the access that goes along with decades of locals being in that local area. So there's going to be a bit of change there. A lot of people have said deforest Glen in recent years because of the amount of clearing that has enabled first home buyers and over 50s to actually get into the area. It's important to know with growth that you can either go up or you can go out. And we keep having these discussions about having development around our development nodes, commercial nodes, schools, hospitals, health and education. This is the right area. If you think about it, you want to actually consolidate all of your growth in this town centre. You don't want to be knocking down all the beautiful trees between Forest Glen and Buderim, which Ted has worked very hard to protect. This proposal here is actually giving the Forest Glen town centre its first heart. Now, if you think about it, you drive into Forest Glen, you've got many different forms of development, storage yards, commercial businesses. There's just about everything that you can think of happening in Forest Glen. This is going to centralise a new focal part of the Forest Glen township. When Ted worked hard to get that road built into the back of the grammar school, that opened up a new opportunity, and that opportunity is being realised here today through the new town centre. Those comments aside, a few things that I want us to take on notice here, and I'm glad that the officers have picked up in their report. Open space, it's not good enough, and we're going to work harder to make sure some open space areas are delivered in this area for the community. The planning scheme talks about it, and our officers are conditioning and requiring that. And I'm glad we're fighting hard for it. The trees, I'd like to see us work as hard as we can to replant as many public realm trees in this suburb as we can. There is too much concrete in Forest Glen, and we need to work really, really hard with the developers to make sure that greenery is renewed and the vegetation is restored within the township. And I know Councillor Ted will be fighting hard for that. But really, what it is for me is about setting the new foundations for the new township. I think we're doing that. I think this is the right direction. And given that we've had all the residential now come first, all the res is approved, there are so many new developments in the precinct, the one thing people need now to get out of their car is access to local services. And that's exactly what this proposal will do.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillors, any other comments or questions? Councillor Suarez.
Thank you for the report. I just have a question about the community consultation. This application only received 6 submissions, and they seem to be all in support, which is great, and they had rational reasons for support of this, and some of those have been touched on today. But they've all been also from people with a common interest. And I was just wondering if you had any understanding or explanation as to why there haven't been additional submissions on this application.
Through the Chair, no, I don't have any particular understanding of why there was only 6, and they were mostly related to the application. There was one from the Chamber of Commerce, but the application did follow the Planning Act's requirements for public notification, and it should be noted that generally for impact assessable development applications, they're only required to notify for 15 days. The Act specifically requires variation request applications to be publicly notified for double that time, so this one was notified for 30 days. Normally, if there's a community concern, through the submissions and through phone calls and emails to officers is how we hear about it, but for this one, I couldn't tell you why there has been.
If I may, Councillor Suarez, follow-up question.
Yeah, just a couple of follow-ups, if I may, Mr. Chair. Do you know, and I have no idea, what time of year the consultation occurred? Was it over a period where people may have been away or busy, like was it over Christmas, something like that?
Through the chair, from memory, it was January, February. So I think it started at the 10th of January and finished on the 25th of February from memory. Yeah.
Okay, so just on that, because, you know, even the surrounding businesses didn't put in any submissions, they had no feelings either way on what this future development was going to be like next to them. And the planning that would be going forward, should this go ahead, will be all code accessible. So it doesn't give the community an opportunity to make a formal submission on any plans that are going forward. So with that in mind, what opportunity would there be for surrounding businesses or residents who may be users of this of this local area to provide some input to council if they see any red flags, or if they want to say, yeah, this is great? What's the opportunity going forward should this go ahead?
Thank you for your question. Mr Mumford?
Yeah, through the chair. So if this was approved and future applications would come in, and if they were in line with the plan of development, they would be code accessible. The only opportunity the community would have would be for if an application came in and didn't align with the plan of development and would be impact accessible and would follow the normal process. The community still have the opportunity, when those code accessible applications come in, to contact officers and email officers, and this happens even for code accessible applications, and we do take those into account.
Happy with that?
Yeah, thank you. I'm satisfied with that response. And I know that does occur. We do rely on the community a lot. They are on the ground a lot more than we are and bring things to our attention that we might have otherwise missed. So I appreciate that the community will have that opportunity to stay in touch with the development team should something like that occur. I'm really pleased to see that the linear vegetation would be retained. And as Councillor Christian Dixon just mentioned, you know, talking about the community hubs that you guys have also identified as a need in terms of this planning going forward. Is there an opportunity to make sure that those community hubs are completely separate from the linear vegetation, and then they're not using the linear vegetation to create those hubs? So that that linear vegetation, basically I'm concerned that the linear vegetation would be impacted if community hubs were created in that space.
Through the chair, so the way it has been provided is the 20-metre linear vegetation. It does include some nodes along there, and obviously the pedestrian footpath along there as well. Council's conditions, or officers' recommendation and conditions and the plan amendments require a separate community hub or parkland of 800 square metres, and we've identified where that needs to go, and it is separate from the linear character vegetation. It's located centrally on the site.
Thank you.
Thank you for your answer and question for your answer. May I ask Councillor Hungerford to the issue that Councillor Suarez raised about the awareness of the community during that consultation period? Did you share any observations or concerns about the awareness of the consultation?
Probably the ones I had most contact with were Nature's Edge. The people there looking for what's going to happen over there, and of course you've got the other retirement thing. It's under construction at the moment, and they'll have direct access. And for those people to be able to get out of the car and walk to where they need to go to do things locally will be a big improvement for Forest Glen and those new communities that are emerging there. So I think this is a very positive step forward in Forest Glen evolving into a local centre.
But you have no concerns about their awareness of that consultation period?
The most awareness I get from people are saying, when are we going to get a shopping centre there? There's more people looking forward to being able to shop and go to the chemist and those sort of things. They're the sort of questions I get asked, and I say, well, I'm not in control of when applications come to council. So I'm very pleased that this has come forward.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Any other? Councillor Law.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, thanks very much. Just a couple of questions, if I may, in relation to the local plan and the changes there. For any current businesses or people in the area of this plan, will they be able to carry on with their ongoing activities and still have space to grow and develop their business under the changes to the local plan?
Mr Mumford.
Through the Chair, can I ask, are you referring to the existing buildings on the subject site or building or uses in surrounding lots?
I think in the surrounding area. So with the change to the local plan, I guess will any current business be disadvantaged or not be able to continue and grow as they might want to do over time? And I suppose to simplify the question, whether that's within the boundary of the local plan or adjacent to it.
So through the Chair, we did ask our peer reviewer, our economic peer reviewer, about impacts on existing businesses in the area, and his comments were that this will work, it's likely, it's his opinion, that this will work like an anchor and will probably encourage more people to the area and may have flow-on effects to the existing businesses.
Thank you. And the second question is around the really positive to hear about the connections for non-vehicle transport. But obviously one of the things to really make this work is that the people who are living nearby, either now or in the future, as other developments occur, can actually get there. I understand that there is going to be a reasonable pathway connections, but I'm concerned about people being able to cross the road without pedestrian crossings and so on. So will we, although it's outside of the area of this development, are we going to be able to make sure that there are either controlled or pedestrian crossings so it's safe for people to get there on foot and not have to jump in a car for what could be a 500 or 800 metre walk if they felt safe to walk there?
Thanks for that question. Councillor Mr Mumford or Mr Rundle?
Morning, Councillor. So you would have seen the information that came through, the additional information where we did speak to issues of path connections. And so the recommendation that we're putting forward is as we said, that the paths within the site are extended to the externals of the site to connect up to Mons Road. We also have path networks around the edge of the road network. So the issue of crossings is not something we've conditioned within the recommendation. However, there is a crossing at the roundabout, at the Grammar School Way roundabout, and a pedestrian refuge. So there will be opportunities to cross the road.
Satisfied with that, Councillor Law?
I think I would just like us to be mindful that a refuge in the middle is one thing, but making sure that there's either an actual pedestrian crossing, which sends a different signal to people driving around there that the people have some priority at least. So yes, I like refuges, but when I think of all the roads in that area, actual pedestrian crossings that gives a person on foot some priority, or a person in a wheelchair or mobility device, that they might get some priority on what are some really busy roads in that space.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I'm sure Councillor Hungerford and the officers have noted your observations. Councillors, any other question?
Just on the basis of Councillor Law's comment, could we please, not today, but in the future, look at what we've got in terms of infrastructure contributions, and if there would be any requirement or benefit in seeing a signalised pedestrian crossing to connect across the road between the recent developments. I understand there might be some over 50s or retirement living down Owen Creek Road, connecting over the road to the new shopping centre. So it might be something we look at. I'm not sure if we've got any money collected that might assist with that project, but worth looking at anyway. It's a lot better than a pedestrian crossing.
Would you like to respond?
Thank you. Only to say that that's not something we can consider through this application.
Understood. Councillors, any other comments? A number of you have asked questions and not necessarily spoken. Councillor Suarez.
I might just speak to the motion. I've listened to the divisional councillor and his understanding of his local community and their feelings of this town centre. It was supposed to be a village centre. It's just been upgraded to accommodate more uses within that zone. I think Councillor Dixon also mentioned it's a good location. It makes sense. It's near a school. It's near a lot of new urban density. So I'm assured that should anything come up within the community regarding the application, they have an opportunity to contact council and at least make us aware of those issues. So I will be supporting this application today.
If there are no other comments or questions, I'll ask Councillor Hungerford to close.
Through you, Mr Chair, I won't go through the details. We've been through it extensively. It's been a long journey to get Forest Glen from a centre that was very dysfunctional and had traffic issues and pedestrian issues to now where we're getting master planning around how it's going to go in the future. And this development sets the path for that. And I think I ask you for support because I think this is taking Forest Glen forward. And after 15 years of working on that area, I'm really pleased that things are starting to fall into line and we're starting to get that area functional again.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillors, I'll ask you to vote on Councillor Hungerford's motion. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That concludes item 8.3. We now invite the Mayor and the absent councillors back into the chambers.
Sorry, councillors, while the others are coming back in, YouTube seems to be down. Not our YouTube, but the whole of YouTube, the live streaming.
We're still recording.
Yeah, we are still recording in terms of that process, and we're trying to work through that at the moment. So just for your information.
The public can access the meeting by coming into the office downstairs.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. Gee, what happened to them all? Welcome back, councillors. We're up to item 8.4, and I'm going to invite Peter and Claudia to give us a presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. So I'm here to talk about the Sunshine Coast Heritage Plan 2021 to 2031. So the Sunshine Coast Heritage Plan 2015 to 2020 is essentially at the end of its life, and all the major projects are complete. So we have developed the new draft plan in anticipation of the completion of the plan this year. To develop the new plan, the existing plan has a proven framework for heritage projects and prioritisation. We also have a process for the annual review of the projects and the process through the budget, the annual heritage levy budget, and that allows us to sort of be flexible and adaptable as we go. In developing the draft, we reviewed the plan, undertook some benchmarking and some peer review with some external heritage entities, and we also did a series of workshops and discussions with the heritage sector. So the 5 key areas of the new plan very much reflect the 5 areas of the 2015 to 2020 plan. As I said, there's a proven framework that we found works very well and is very flexible and enables us to respond to needs as we progress through the years, and also address those key issues. So goal area 1 knowledge is really about research projects and identifying stories for the region and undertaking that research. Conservation is really about protecting the various assets. A lot of them are to do with the council assets, but also private and community collections as well. And support is really where a lot of the guts of the heritage plan is. So that's supporting the sustainability and professionalisation of the region's museums, and we do that through grants, programs, events. In the new plan, there is the additional item suggested by the councillors in the councillor consultation, which is noted in the report. And items 4 is really about marketing cultural heritage tourism and engaging the broader community. And our advocacy is really just awareness and appreciation initiatives. So we feel the plan is ready for public consultation, and we're here today to seek council's endorsement for the draft plan to go to community consultation.
Thank you, Peter. Someone to move? Councillor Babarowski, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Law, thank you. Would you like to open Councillor Babarowski?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. And councillors, with great pleasure, I'd like to support the officer recommendation. And I think we would all recognise that the Sunshine Coast draft heritage plan is to become a 10-year plan, and it is simply a recommendation to go out to public consultation. But it's worth noting that as Peter, sorry, I can't get past the informality with Peter, Mr Cornell, has already described, this was a pretty extensive process that went behind this draft. It was developed with local and sector-wide focus groups and workshops and peer assessed. And mind you that it is developed to guide the region's heritage levy, currently generates about 1.9 million per year, over the next 10 years. So if endorsed, consultation is proposed to take place in around November, December, and if all goes well, a subsequent finalised report to Council in February 2021. The proposed format doesn't really change much because it's a proven structure of the 5 key areas. The region's first plan, though, the 215 to 220, has been successful. It successfully delivered 5 annual implementation plans funded by the levy, and I'll just illustrate a few of the highlights. They are all detailed in the report. So a themed history of the Sunshine Coast, the revised heritage register, the infrastructure studies, the sector development program and the grants program, and I think we'll all be very pleased to hear a much greater and much more serious engagement with our First Nations groups. So, councillors, I think it is a good moment for us to take this out to the community with confidence for a 10-year plan, and I ask for your support.
Okay. No further speakers? Can I just, I was waiting for an opportunity to say this, and particularly in relation to our Indigenous community and it being NAIDOC week. And I really wanted to, and obviously that's an important part, the Indigenous history, the way in which we deal with it, the way we manage it, the way we participate with our Indigenous community is very important. And I was so proud of Wayne and Natalie, who performed as our MCs at the NAIDOC flag raising ceremony during the week on Tuesday. I was really impressed with what they said, how they said it, the confidence with which they said it. And it, for me, was a real watershed in terms of our staff stepping up and to play a more prominent role. And I think it would have given great confidence to all of those Indigenous people in attendance that our council is very serious about the opportunity, and clearly the Sunshine Coast heritage is in many ways tied to our Indigenous population. So there's a raft of opportunities for the future, but I just wanted to have an opportunity to publicly acknowledge Wayne and Natalie, two employees who are doing a great job for council, but also a great job for their cultural group as well. So thank you. Councillor Law.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would obviously want to support the comments we've heard from the Deputy Mayor in support of this next stage of the plan going to community consultation. The plan to get to this stage has already had a great deal of input from stakeholders with relevant expertise and knowledge to adapt, adjust, edit and create the next draft 10-year plan that's before us today. So I think it's ready for consultation. I urge the support of councillors today so that we can then have a really clear, strong strategy for our heritage plan going over the next 10 years. And I might like to thank and acknowledge the words from our Mayor in relation to the ceremony on Tuesday. The strength and power of our MCs that day was remarkable. And if you're not aware of what we're talking about, I can let you know that it was recorded on the Facebook Live, and you can go and hear and listen to the words and the strength and the power that was demonstrated that morning. So thank you very much for highlighting that today, Mr Mayor, and support, please, for our Heritage Plan draft strategy going to consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Natali.
The question, Mr Mayor, there's no mention of how much is allocated for the budget for the public consultation. Can you give us an indication of what that budget is?
It's about $3,000 at the moment in terms of the marketing, but there are a number of community events that we are putting on for free, so there are costs for those events. So the total is, including the marketing, is about $6,000.
Seems pretty big.
Okay. No further speakers. Go to Councillor Babarowski to close.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr Mayor, for your comments. And look, I am particularly pleased that this plan proposes a potentially increased role in our cooperative approach with the community museum sector, which I think we're all very much aware is run essentially by volunteers. And in some situations, they are struggling to maintain volunteer numbers, keep up with incredibly rigorous regulatory demands on facility and collections management. And as we recognise, heritage is just not, it's not snap frozen to any one particular generation or era. So it's a really remarkable, demanding challenge to keep up with what is a continuously expanding task. So I like the fact that this plan is going to take that on much more seriously. And in conclusion, if I may just say that, again, look, the delivery of the first 5-year plan was, I think, critical to our maturation around this issue and to the recognition of our region's achievements. We received 4 National Trust Heritage Awards and 3 Museum and Gallery Awards, one of them national. So, councillors, I certainly hope that that's been persuasive and that you'll support today's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Peter and Claudia. We're going to move now to item 8.5, the commercial use of community land, high use activity, and I welcome Shana Jacobs and Narelle Roberts.
Good morning, councillors. Officers are proposing to add a new activity and location to Council's high-use, high-impact process. In accordance with Council's community land and complementary commercial use policy, this location and activity needs to come to Council for consideration before being advertised for expressions of interest. The activity in question has been operating at Mooloolaba Beach by a not-for-profit group for approximately 30 years based on anecdotal evidence. Council has evidence of approvals dating back at least 18 years, allowing a small beach buggy with a trailer to sell shaved ice and drinks along Mooloolaba Beach. The approval held by the not-for-profit organisation was surrendered to Council in July this year, and we subsequently received an application from a commercial operator wishing to take over the permit. As the operation runs 7 days a week and is on one of our premier beach locations, it falls into the high-use, high-impact category. Following feedback from stakeholders, the permit location has been refined and conditions of the approval have been expanded to include appropriate waste management to protect the beach from litter. In all the years of operation, Council has never received a complaint about the business. If supported, the application process would see Council advertise the opportunity for 4 weeks. This allows people to put forward an expression of interest, whether they be businesses or not-for-profits. Those applications are then assessed by the selection criteria outlined in the report. Based on that assessment, the permit would be awarded to the most successful applicant. The timeline outlined would see us issue a permit at the end of January 2021, and the permit would expire on the 30th of June 2022. This would then bring the permit in line with Council's existing high-use, high-impact approvals, which are due to commence again, due to be advertised again during that period. So to allow this process to commence, Council officers are seeking Council to endorse the amended list of activities and the advertising and assessment process for the permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shana. Somebody prepared to move? Councillor Joe, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Babarowski, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Natali?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I did express some concerns about having this activity on the beach, and I did have a long discussion with Ms Jacobs the other day, which allayed a lot of my fears. I suppose the real issue is for me that I personally don't believe that it should be there, but that's my own personal opinion. It's not that of the public. I think 30 years of no complaints, the fact that it's been there historically, who am I to judge whether it's something that the community actually values or not? I want to put aside my own personal opinion and support this. In the interim, over the next period of time, I'll try and gauge a better understanding of what the community's feeling is about this particular activity on the beach, and if they want to continue to support it, then I'll do so. If they don't, then I'll take a different position next time round.
Okay. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you for your presentation. I did also share a concern about some of the uses that are on the beach that result in litter or waste. You mentioned that there's some extra waste conditions that you would be applying. Do you mind just touching on those and what extra measures would be taken, if it should be a refreshment ban or something of that nature?
Yeah. Through the Chair, so if Council endorses the location and activity, it is approved as is, so adjustments can't be made to the type of activity at the location. With regards to the waste management, there's two elements to it. One is making sure that the operator has sufficient waste receptacles on the vehicle, and the second is asking them to monitor the area at the close of business each day to remove any visible waste.
Okay, no further speakers. Would you like to close, Councillor? Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Shana. Item 8.6 is recognising, protecting and celebrating our night sky. I invite Dave Moore. There's probably somewhere handy to give us a presentation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. In January of this year, Council resolved to investigate appropriate mechanisms, including dark sky reserve designations, that recognise, protect and celebrate the night sky. The purpose of this report is to present the findings of this investigation and the proposed next steps in relation to this subject for your consideration. So what are dark skies? Dark sky is the natural occurrence of the sky at night, free from human-caused light pollution. With light pollution being the excessive use of artificial light, the amount of light pollution on the Sunshine Coast could be expected to increase as our population also increases across the next 20 years and beyond. Within our local government area, when we look up at the night sky, we have an element of our natural assets that presents an opportunity to protect and celebrate as part of the Sunshine Coast and provides a point of difference compared to other destinations. Such national and international recognition could also help to support the economy, tourism, sustainability and the livability of the Sunshine Coast. Complementary to our proposed biosphere designation, the investigation undertaken aligns with our Environment Livability Strategy's transformational action to increase our understanding of how people interact with the natural environment and specifically the task to investigate mechanisms to provide long-term protection of core environmental areas and green spaces and promote approaches to minimise the impacts of human use and activities across the region. The independent investigation undertaken identified existing mechanisms that recognise, protect and celebrate the night sky by assessing against criteria that responded to Council's vision, strategic directions, recognition, partnership opportunities and resource implications. It summarised the benefits, constraints and consideration for each mechanism and provided recommendations on the most appropriate mechanisms for the Sunshine Coast. An International Dark Sky Place designation through the International Dark Sky Association rated the highest mechanism against this assessment criteria. Other complementary tools such as policies and guidelines and engagement opportunities were identified to potentially support the management of a future dark sky designation. To progress, it's recommended that further investigations with targeted input are undertaken to scope potential Sunshine Coast Dark Sky Place designations and possible locations within the local government area. Determine eligibility and requirements of pursuing these designations, including planning and resource implications, process and benefits and opportunities. And determine interest and support of the required partners for any proposed dark sky place designation on the Sunshine Coast. Councillors, this report is recommending your support to undertake further investigations to progress the recognition, protection and celebration of our night sky on the Sunshine Coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr Moore. Councillor Johnston, do you want to move?
I just want to ask a question, please.
Okay, fire away.
Dr Moore, I and a couple of the other people who are really active in this area have concerns about being put off to November 21 before a recommendation comes back to Council. There's a fear that by doing so that it may miss even that budget cycle because there might be a lot of questions that need answering, etc., etc. And would it be difficult for us to change the last sentence, clause C, where it says to report back to Council by November 21 for consideration, if it was changed to report back to Council as soon as possible for consideration. There is a considerable concern by the two people that, well, three people that are advocating for this, and I understand that there are budget constraints, etc., but I think we need to give a clear message that we're serious.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the conversations that Council's had already around this matter and the recommendation here is that dark skies are important for the Sunshine Coast. There is a need to have further conversations with members of the community as well as the councils as well around this. and I think this report sets out to start those as soon as we can, alongside all of the other projects which we'd planned for this financial year. The mechanisms investigation was one which we'd sort of planned for, whereas this piece of work wasn't in our program, but we're looking to progress it across the next 6 months so that we can report back as soon as possible.
That's all I'm asking, to report back as soon as possible. In that case, I have great pleasure in moving the resolution with the amendment in the last line of clause C to say report back to council as soon as possible for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Dixon is having a second. Yes.
Pardon? For consideration, back to council.
For consideration. Yep. As soon as possible. Yep. Happy with that, councillor?
Yes.
Seconder? Good. Okay, you'd like to open the batting?
In speaking to this, Mr. Mayor, it's not, and councillor, it's not something that I had thought a great deal about prior to being elected to council, other than to admire on occasions the beautiful stars and etc. And I hadn't really thought about the fact that that Maloney and the Mary Valley are an ideal location for it. I've lived there most of my life, and I just thought it was natural. But having gone to other areas and realised just how difficult it is to see the night sky, to observe the stars, the Milky Way, all those, some of the planets that you can actually see with your naked eye when you have a proper dark sky. I think we have an opportunity to do something really fantastic for the Sunshine Coast. We've had lots of opportunities and we've done many great things, and I think this is another one which will put us on the map once again, but also will attract a lot of people to come to the area for visitation, to observe our dark sky, to see what we have to offer, and it's just another benefit of coming to the Sunshine Coast. And I'd like to see it happen as soon as possible. I realise there are budget constraints. Ken, what's his last name again?
Excuse me, Wishaw.
Wishaw, yeah. Ken and ex-councillor Jenny Mackay, they are passionate about this, and I've promised them that I will try to drive it forward so that we can deliver on this very, very important aspect of the Sunshine Coast.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dixon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, Councillor Winston's point around Councillor Mackay's or previous Councillor Mackay's involvement. I remember one of the last things Jenny said to me, I remember asking her on the last day, is there anything you need championed for the next council? And she said this was one of them. I knew nothing about night skies or dark skies until Jenny brought it to my attention, and since then we've done a fair bit of work on that. Growing up in the hinterland, I grew up in Montville on Western Avenue, so the current Flame Hill Winery, that was my house. That's where I lived, and my parents brought the Queenslander up from Brisbane. And I remember as a kid being able to go outside. Wells out a fair bit, liked to play out in the yard, had a lot of room, 33 acres, and you can actually look up and enjoy the stars. You can see things. Where I live at the moment, in Harmony, the Sunshine Coast Stadium blanks out my view. I just see this massive light, and I know Councillor Joe knows what I'm talking about because it stands out. And on the coast, we're more and more losing our ability to appreciate what's actually above us at night. I don't want to see this just limited to Maloney and Malula. I think, climbing the Glasshouse Mountains, I climb Mount Gungun at night time. I've done that a few times, and the views you get are sensational, and especially in summer watching the storms come across. I think here there's a lot we can do, and for me it's about probably feeling a little bit selfish because we know where the development's got to go, and this reaffirms that as well. We don't want urban development in the hinterland in any large capacity. This is also a growth exercise. So I'm right behind it. I think if we can protect the hinterland for what I've enjoyed growing up with as a kid, for future generations, I'll do whatever I can to support that. And Dr. Dave, another great project.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Verrierdale.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. What a pleasure to stand to support this recommendation. I think this is a great match for our region, but it reminds us that we are not there yet. Really, essentially what we're doing is seeking to understand this better and really understand it at a level where we can have a shot at managing the amount of light that will affect the dark sky as a concept. So I really am excited that we're on this journey. We're not there yet. So I think that it's part of the culture of, what I think is a great part of the Sunshine Coast community attitude to development. We want to understand it. I like the idea that we will have enough knowledge of both the technologies around street lighting and the various different impacts they have to preserve a night sky across the region at different levels. But this also makes us understand that there are very specific specifications for certain criteria of designation. I like that. It's very demanding. It's science. It's basically saying you won't be able to manage this if you don't understand it. I do think, I love the fact that Councillor Dixon mentioned, and look, it is about understanding the standards that we can achieve across the region. We will have some very high bars to achieve in certain areas where we can get a designation of dark sky at the best level, but I think I'm certainly looking forward to around the Glasshouse Country Townships and the Glasshouse Mountains generally, which we should all remind ourselves, along with Ninderry and Mount Coolabah, are the best bumps on the planet, without doubt. And from those best bumps on the planet, I want to, like Councillor Dixon, be able to see a night sky. This gives us a roadmap to maybe really getting enough understanding of how we can do that and succeeding for future generations, which is really, I love that notion that we're taking this long-term view and couldn't support this with more passion.
Thank you, Councillor Verrierdale. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. I love the night sky and probably take it for granted where I live. I get the opportunity to look up with the kids and check out, shooting stars and things like that. And I think, this project, you touched on it before, Dr Moore, about retaining some more of our green spaces. And when council talks about retaining green spaces, we don't talk about it in terms of putting a fence around it so no one can come and enjoy it. And this would be one of those projects where we would allow the community to come and experience these activities, like looking at the night sky, but also to help them become educated about the importance of our natural environment. So I'm very supportive, and Councillor Winston, you can certainly tell your community I'm very supportive of this initiative going forward, and happy to support it today.
Okay, back to you, Councillor Close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, considering that this is NAIDOC week, it's an important time for us to recognise that our First Nation people have always looked to the stars for their direction. It taught them when they should do things, when certain animals were going to be in abundance, etc., etc. And that's an aspect also which we can, our community can talk to people about and show that there is a different aspect to the night sky other than the traditional one that many of us white people understand. So I would encourage councillors to support this resolution, this motion, because it will do a number of things. It will recognise that there are more ways of looking to the heavens than just one. It will give us something that we can sell to the broader community, not just our own, but to bring people here to observe. It will also show to the community that we understand the need of protecting certain environments on our coast, in our coastal regional council. And it's going to give us the impetus, finally, to make sure that our town plan, when we develop the next stage of it, takes these sorts of things into consideration, and that we look at how developments occur, what type of lighting occurs, where the light spills into the atmosphere and destroys this beautiful vision. So thank you, councillors, for listening to me and for supporting this resolution.
We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried by Councillor Babarowski, Councillor Landsberg, Cox, Natoli, Johnston, Dixon, Hungerford, O'Price, Suarez, Jamieson. Those opposed? Councillor Law. The motion's carried. Thank you, David. Item 8.7 is the financial report for October 2020. Welcome, Isaac and Sandy.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Here today present the financial performance report for October 2020. Councillors, at the end of October, the operating result of $53.7 million is favourable to budget by $4.3 million. The favourable variance consists of revenue above budget of $2.3 million, as well as expenses below budget of $2 million. Council's revenue for October is tracking ahead of budget, with additional funds being received for the Sunshine Coast Stadium, as well as Council's holiday parks. Additional revenue is offset by reduced revenue on parking infringements. Council's total employee expenses are slightly above budget, which is offset by reduced expenditure in materials and services. Council's capital works program has progressed 35% of budget, with the total expenditure of $95.9 million. Council's core capital program is 29% complete and currently on track for an above 90% completion at financial year end. Council's cash at the end of September is $209 million, with $95 million currently invested in short-term deposits at an average interest rate of 0.78%. And so, Council, the recommendation today is that Council receive and note the report titled October 2020 Financial Performance Report.
Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Natoli. Thank you. You'd like to open, Councillor Hungerford?
I'll give some of my points of view moving through the report. I see our operating result, which we put in for this year at $4.3 million, is now showing $2.7 million. That's about a $1.6 million reduction there. That seems to be made up of less fees and charges than we anticipated for, and extra expenses in employee costs. So that's something we'll look at going to the headwind of setting our new budget and budgeting for the rest of this year. The positive things are $96 million of Council's $272 million capital works program has been financially expended, and that's good for our community. The core capital program has progressed 28.9% of budget with an actual spend of $57 million. And our corporate major projects have progressed 61.7%, and the Sunshine Coast Airport runway project progressed 54.6% of their respective budgets. So that's very positive for those entities there. The other thing I'd like to point out is our cash balance of October 2020 has been stated before, $209 million. And if you look at the investment performance, now this is one we're going to have to watch, especially with the interest rates that have just gone down. With the $209 million, excluding trust fund, with an average interest rate of 0.78%, being 67% above the benchmark figure. That's going to be under pressure because of the recent adjustment in interest rates. So it'll be interesting to see what we can get, if anything at all, going into the future. So that will put pressure on us. And just as a comparison, at the same period last year, we had $235 million in cash, excluding the trust fund, with an average rate of 2.08%. So that makes a big difference to our bottom line, and that we have to take into account. So those pressures with us, but there's still the effects of COVID expenditures are going to be testing for us into the future, but we are in a sound position. We'll have to make sound decisions in the next budget and look at our budget for this year to try and get us. I don't want to go into another small deficit again. I'd like to stay in positive if we can, but we are sailing into significant headwinds, and with that, I put this forward as a sound representation of where we're at the moment, and we are in a very sound position considering what we've just been through.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. No further speakers. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just thought I might ask a question, because I noted that Councillor Hungerford did recognise that there's downward pressure on the interest rates that we're receiving, and we're all aware, everyone in the community is aware now that what was usually risk-free investments, giving a reasonable return, essentially evaporated for some time to come. So I wonder whether, as a council, do we have an opportunity, or do we have a mechanism to consider any other allocations that, for everybody else considering this, generally you have to accept a degree of risk if you're seeking higher returns. Do we think about that? Do we have a mechanism, or do we have a necessary imperative to stay absolutely conservative in this space?
Sure, might head up there. Oh, that's right.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we have considered that, and we certainly considered that early this financial year through QIC, Queensland Investment Corporation. They had a number of managed funds, and those managed funds were achieving growth well above the norm of certainly of our basically no risk interest with our placements. Those funds have deteriorated significantly through COVID, such that one council to the south of us have actually lost over $10 million. So we're very mindful of maintaining our capital, whereas those funds did not have a capital guarantee. When things are good, they're very good, but when things turn the other way, when you've got particularly the basket of assets that they had in the classes for those funds, then you physically lose money out of your balance sheet. So that's why our debt policy, our investment policy is very conservative in that we stress about maintenance of our capital. So we consider it, but it's risk and return. So we've always worked on the nature of being very risk averse, and that gives us smaller returns. But in the instance of this council, and this is only fresh, this is only in the last month or so, we've found out this information. Investment in that particular fund has reduced their balance sheet, their cash, by $10 million. So we consider it, but we base it on our investment policy on maintenance of our returns. Yep.
Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Could I just check if I may, the intent behind the Deputy Mayor's question is, are you suggesting that we should be getting more risky behaviour in terms of our investments, or are you asking the questions to make sure that our staff are in fact ensuring that we have a very conservative situation as just described by Mr Costello? Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hungerford, would you like to close? No need to close. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. 8.8 we've completed. 8.9 we'll do now is the acquisition of land at Caloundra. Tim is here to make a presentation. Come on in, Tim. Kim, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, good afternoon. Good afternoon, councillors. The purpose of this report is for council to consider the acquisition of land at 3 Canberra Terrace, Kings Beach, Caloundra, known as the old Caloundra Lighthouses. The site is a heritage-listed property improved with 2 lighthouses and a brick generator shed. The lighthouses are associated with the early development of Caloundra, and as such has a strong and social significance for the Sunshine Coast community. The site has been formally managed by council under a licence from the State of Queensland since 2010. In August 2019, the state declared the property surplus to their requirements and included it on the government land register to offer it for sale to other state government agencies and council. Council subsequently wrote to the Department of Transport and Main Roads to request that consideration be given to transferring the property to council at nil cost, as per the Queensland Government Land Transfer Policy Interagency Exemption. Department of Transport and Main Roads has recently advised Council that it agrees to the transfer of the property to Council in freehold at $1. Management of the asset is shared with the Friends of the Caloundra Lighthouses, a community group on recurring 3-year sublicences. The Friends contribute to the management and maintenance of the property and also open the buildings to the public on a regular basis for special purpose tourism and educational occasions. A recent Sunshine Coast Council property inspection notes the building and fixtures require some repairs and maintenance. Based on a visual inspection, the estimated 10-year maintenance costs are $160,500, but professional inspections and surveys would inform more accurate forecasts. It is recommended that Council delegates authority to the CEO to finalise and execute the acquisition of 3 Canberra Terrace to ensure preservation of this iconic community asset and associated park. Thank you.
Someone to move? Councillor Landsberg, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Babarowski. Would you like to open, Councillor Landsberg?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Lighthouse in Caloundra, an iconic symbol, and I think around the world people think of Caloundra and obviously a lighthouse. But look, built in 1896, with the new Caloundra light that was replaced that as well in 1968. It's had a bit of a troubled life, the old lighthouse. It was repurposed and moved down to, Wirram Beach, park down at Golden Beach in 1970. It was dropped when it was moved back here. A bit of a story there. But look, it served a wonderful era for our local mariners. Between 1896 and 1978, before it was decommissioned, it gave a safe passage through that northern entrance, through the Northwest Passage past Bribie Island, and a safe passage into Brisbane. The Lions Club lobbied hard, probably back in your time, Councillor Winston, to have it moved back to its original site, and with the help of a $50,000 grant from the Caloundra City Council back then, and that kicked off the process of bringing it home. As we know, it's a symbol of not only our local high schools, our community clubs and rugby union clubs that use the Lighthouse logo as on display, but the Friends of the Lighthouse that do operate there, I think they'll be extremely happy, and the potential for them to activate this site into the future. They have a vision of trying to get more tourism onto this spot. It would really serve a lot of purpose. But I can understand there's concerns for the maintenance of this ongoing structure, and it is the oldest structure we have in Caloundra here, but it's an iconic symbol, and I think it's an important part of our heritage that we really need to acknowledge this as part of Caloundra, and I'd like to hopefully support this moving forward today.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Babarowski.
Councillors, just like to say I think future generations will be very grateful if we make the right decision here. Obviously it does come with some responsibilities and costs, but a very good negotiation. So congratulations to the team and the people involved. A great result, and as I say, I think 100 years hence, people will look back at that as that was a good moment.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
I just want to echo the comments already made by Councillor Landsberg and Babarowski in relation to this particular agenda item. It's very fitting that earlier today we just endorsed our draft heritage plan to go out for community consultation, and here we are talking about a negotiation of a very significant heritage site. Great job by our officers in negotiating with this, and if any of the councillors haven't actually been up to the lighthouses in Caloundra, well worth it. The view there to Moreton Island and the bay, back through to the Glasshouse Mountains, is simply probably one of the best views on the Sunshine Coast. So I'll certainly be supporting this here today and just encourage everyone to do likewise.
Thank you, Councillor. Like to close, Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you. I just hope that we can work with the Friends of the Lighthouse, and really there's quite a few ideas they'd like to see up there and to promote tourism on this spot. So I think it'll be. I did also have a tour of the lighthouse as well
Pete, and not really good with heights, to tell you the truth, but yeah, the view was amazing up there. So yeah, a wonderful outcome for Friends of the Lighthouse and the broader community.
Thank you. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Well done. Thank you, Tim and Kim. Moving along to 8:10 is the Audit Committee meeting of 6 October. I invite Bill Hadrill to give us just questions. We've had the presentation, so are there any questions or someone to move to start with? Happy to move, Councillor Natali, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Hungerford. Do you want to open, Councillor Natali? No. Fine. No, fine. Are there any questions for Councillor Hungerford?
The Audit Committee meeting was pretty straightforward and most recommendations there. The general purpose financial statements and current financial year sustainability statement for 2019-20 have been audited by the external auditors. We saw that this morning. We've received another unmodified audit, which brings us to 12 in a row. The main thing to point out from here, there was a risk that was associated from memory in the finance one this morning. This was looked at, it had about a $30 million liability there, and that's been reduced down to 3 because of the work of the group. So the risks associated with the timing and accuracy of contributed asset write-on, and this is all about timing when the asset comes onto our books, reduced due to the significant work undertaken by the Finance Contributed Assets Working Group and the Queensland Audit Office discussions with Economic Development Queensland. The efforts of the Finance Contributed Assets Working Group were acknowledged by the Audit Committee, so that was a very positive result there. So that's the only one of significance that I saw come out of that report. Otherwise, the report's an excellent report and takes us forward in good light.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. No further speakers. Don't need to close. Councillor Natali. Thank you. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thanks again, Bill. Councillors, 8:11. As I notified you at the special meeting on 9 November 2020, I have a prescribed conflict of interest in relation to agenda item 8.11 at today's ordinary meeting. I'll not be participating in the decision for this agenda item and will now leave the meeting for the duration of the consideration and vote on this item. For completeness, I'd ask that the full details of my prescribed conflict of interest as notified on 9/11/20 be included in the minutes of today's meeting. And I'd ask Councillor Babarowski if he'd take the chair, please.
Councillors, I'd like to thank the Mayor for his declaration and just check that there aren't any other relevant declarations. I would think not. So, Councillors, we are considering 8.11, the appointment of an independent audit committee members. And do we have a presentation on this one?
Look, I can certainly step through a presentation.
Would you mind? Yes, thank you.
I'm more than happy to. Deputy Mayor, councillors, the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval for the appointment of 2 new independent members to council's audit committee. The audit committee is an advisory committee of council with an overall objective to assist the council and the chief executive to discharge their duties. The committee is established in accordance with the Local Government Regulation 2012, and these requirements are reflected in the Audit Committee Charter, which was last endorsed at the February 2020 Ordinary Meeting of Council. The Audit Committee Charter states that the committee must consist of at least 3 and no more than 6 members. The committee has recently operated with 4 members, being 2 times councillors, and 2 independent members, with the 2 current independent members commencing their time in 2009. At the August 2019 Ordinary Meeting of Council, endorsement was provided for the Independent Audit Committee member transition strategy, which outlined the strategy to replace the 2 existing Audit Committee members. The endorsed transition strategy included the following steps. A, to publicly advertise the 2 Independent Audit Committee positions, and B, to extend the 2 independent members to December 2020 to allow transitioning of the new Independent Audit Committee members. At the May 2020 Ordinary Meeting of Council, and as a result of the disruptions to Council's operations from COVID-19, A further extension was provided for the 2 current independent members through to the 30th of June 2021. The 2 independent audit committee member positions were publicly advertised on the 17th of August for a 2-week period. At that point in time, on closure, 35 applications were received by the closing date, and applications for the positions were assessed by a selection panel consisting of senior council officers. The selection panel shortlisted 4 applicants for interview. Following the completion of the interview process, 2 applicants are recommended, Mr Mitchell Petrie and Mr Patrick McCallum. The recommended appointees both possess significant experience in the areas of audit, assurance and risk, and will bring significant experience and skills to the Audit Committee if appointed. The recommended appointees will replace the 2 existing independent members, Mr Peter Dowling and Mr Land Caloundra, whose contracts expire June 2021. Accordingly, the Audit Committee will be comprised of 6 members for the period January to June 2021. Deputy Mayor, today seeking Council support for the appointment of Mr Mitchell Petrie and Mr Patrick McCallum as independent Audit Committee members.
Thank you very much, Mr Haddrell. Councillor, someone to move? Councillor Natoli, seconder. Councillor Hungerford, questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Hungerford.
There is a process for rotating independent members on the panel. That was underway until COVID got in the way at the beginning of the year. This would have been processed by June.
Correct.
We had to extend the 10 years of those at the time being until we got past this. So this is just us picking up and finalising that process. It's a very necessary process. And rotating people regularly is a good thing in an audit committee as well, especially with the... I was impressed with the talent of the people you had to choose from. I wouldn't have liked to have been on that selection panel because there was quite highly qualified people there. You picked out 2 very suitable ones, and I look forward to working with them for the rest of this term on the Audit Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Natoli, my apologies. Did you want to speak to your motion?
I welcome the appointment of these 2 members to the committee. Obviously, we've been very well served in the past by Len Scanlon and Peter Dowling, and I think I look forward to the contribution the 2 members make.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, through you, Mr Chair. I've had a look through the information and both candidates look very well credentialed. I do have to address Mr Mitchell Petrie's involvement with the LGIA Super Audit and Risk Committee. Earlier today we discussed amongst ourselves as councillors our potential conflicts of interest in decision-making matters, and the Mayor has excused himself from this item for specifically this group. How would Mr Mitchell Petrie be able to manage any conflicts with his role on the Audit Committee and his role on the LGIA Super Audit Committee?
Thank you for your question. Mr Haddrell?
Might invite Mr Greg Laverty to make an opening comment, and then I'll provide some further information.
Thank you. Mr Laverty.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, Mr Chair. I'll take the question as the Chair of the selection panel. And as been mentioned a couple of times, the applicants for these roles were of high standard, very experienced, so governance and conflicts of interest were something that was important to them. In the case of Mitchell, he disclosed his role on LGI Super in his application. As part of the interview process, there was a specific question asked of every candidate to identify any conflicts of interest that they might have. In this case with LGI Super, who have an investment interest in Sunshine Coast Airport, with the current status of that arrangement, with, as we know, the airport construction program almost done, the lease arrangements with Palisade completed, there will be a very limited number of occurrences where the airport will go to the Audit Committee, and the Audit Committee is not a decision-making body, so they don't make decisions. There will be a limited number of occurrences that the airport will be discussed at the Audit Committee. In those small number of occurrences where it does happen, Mitchell will disclose his interest and a decision will be made, but I would expect that he will exit the meeting. So any conflicts will be disclosed and they'll be managed appropriately, and we're comfortable, particularly at the moment, that that will happen. If this was happening 3 years ago, when the deal with Palisade was not done, the construction project was not finished, then we may have arrived at a different decision. But at the moment, we're comfortable that any potential conflicts can be appropriately managed.
Thank you, Mr Lavati. Do you want to add something, Mr Hadrell?
No, Deputy Mayor, I think Greg has covered the additional points that I was going to raise, so I'm comfortable with that response unless there's any further questioning.
Can I just check, are you satisfied with that response? All right. Do you want to carry on? I think we're just checking if there's any other comments or questions. Any other comments from you, Mr Hadrell? Would you like to close? In that case, we'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr Hadrell.
Thank you.
We now invite the Mayor back to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. We're moving now to, well, there are no notices of motion. Tremendous. We're moving now to petitions. 10.1, we have one from Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I have, after this, I have a matter which I haven't had a chance to speak to you about, but it relates to the passing of council employee that I'd just like to say a couple of words. Could I please have the permission to do so later?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll do it before we close, yep.
Mr Mayor, I've been petitioned by residents of the Maleny area for a safe walking path from Maleny Grove, Retirement Village, Palm Street, Maleny to the Maleny Town Centre, and in fact Maple Street. It's signed by 30 petitioners. We, the undersigned residents of Maleny Grove, Retirement Village, Palm Street, Maleny and other residents hereby seek to bring to your attention the lack of safe walking paths from Palm Street to Maple Street and seek council funding to improve the safety of the walk, reduce the dangers to pedestrians. The walking route to Maple Street involves crossing a dangerous intersection at Palm Street with Bean Street and Tamarind Street. The curve in the road along Bean Street prevents clear vision of oncoming traffic, and the road is particularly wide at that point, meaning that pedestrians are often well underway in their crossing before the vehicle comes into view, often at speed. Young parents who live on Palm Street and beyond have to walk their prams on the roads in order to get to town safely, as the only other route to town involves an extensive set of stairs. The walking route to Maple Street consists only of partial footpaths, many gaps where pedestrians are forced to either walk on the road itself or cross the road to reach another footpath. I go on to say that walking is an excellent and important healthy and physical activity for almost everybody. It not only improves health in their heart, it also improves mental health, lifts spirits and encourages community connection. It is not a dangerous or unsafe thing to do. They ask Council to prioritise funding for completion of a safe walking path from Palm Street to Maple Street for all residents of this area, including retirees, young people, families and those with pets who use this route on their daily walk.
Thank you, Councillor. Can we have someone second the receipt? Thank you, Councillor Dixon. All those in favour of receipt? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, we have two items that need to be addressed in confidential session. The first is agenda item 11.1. This recommendation has been made on the basis the information contained in the report is considered to be confidential, as its public disclosure would potentially impact adversely on the finalisation of a current commercial negotiation process and Council's ability to secure the land parcels at a price that represents the best value for the ratepayers of the region who contribute to the Environmental Levy Land Acquisition Program. Furthermore, the disclosure of the information in this report could impact on Council's approach to conducting commercial negotiations in relation to property acquisitions generally, whether that be acquisitions for the purpose of environmental land levy acquisition or program or acquisitions for other purposes. And we also have item 11.2. The recommendation has been made on the basis that the information contained in the report is considered to be confidential as it relates to negotiations of a commercial matter involving the council, and its public disclosure would likely prejudice the interests of local government. Council has entered into a non-disclosure agreement with the party involved in this transaction, and that agreement restricts both parties from disclosing information to other persons in regard to the commercial negotiations. The public release of information related to this transaction prior to the transaction being endorsed by council and finalised with the proponent will most likely result in the proponent withdrawing from the negotiations and expose council to a potential action for breach of its confidentiality obligations in the non-disclosure agreement. For these reasons, it's been recommended that council close the meeting under section 254J brackets 3 brackets G of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to consider and discuss the information in these reports as it contains information on negotiations relating to commercial matters involving the local government for which a public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of local government. Noting, of course, that the council's decisions on these agenda items will be made during an open session, which will be viewable by the public. Councillors, can I please ask someone to, if they agree, move that both agenda items 11.1 and 11.2 be dealt with in confidential session? Councillor Dixon? Seconded Councillor Babrowski. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Yes. So we're back in open session. Item 11.1 on strategic land acquisitions. It's moved by Councillor Suarez, seconded by Councillor Johnston. Anyone have any questions or wish to speak to it? Councillor Cox.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just wanted to say that this, if it's endorsed here today, will be another great acquisition by council in terms of trying to establish a natural environment conservation program. And I think we're making great inroads into developing that conservation estate for our future generations, and I'll certainly be endorsing this here today.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. No further speakers, no need to close, Councillor. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. And finally, item 11.2, the proposed land disposal Maroochydore. Moved Councillor Hungerford, seconded Councillor Natoli. You like to open, Councillor? Are there any questions? No. Need to close? No. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Johnston, back to your earlier request. Did you want that to be in the public meeting or post the meeting? Please, you proceed now.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor.
Just put your speaker on if you don't mind.
It is.
Good.
Thank you for your indulgence. In my role as serving on the Service Excellence portfolio, one of the things that we talk about is being a caring council. And sadly, it was brought to my knowledge by Tom Jamison, the Group Executive for Built Infrastructure, that one of the people working for council in his area has passed away. And I'd just like to inform councillors, although I think, and the community, that Brett Mountford passed away over the weekend. He worked in our Parks and Gardens team. Brett joined Maroochydore Council in 2008 as a member of the Cleaning Services team in the Infrastructure Services Department after having worked casually for Caloundra Shire Council, it's actually City Council. More recently, Brett took up Parks horticultural maintenance role in the Coolum Depot, where he was a highly valued team member of that close-knit team and a friend to many. Brett's colleagues in Parks had described him as a great bloke with a heart of gold. He liked to be a larrikin at times and loved his his beloved Essendon, the Bombers Aussie Rules Football Club, was always quick with a comment when his team got the better of the other teams, especially the Adelaide Crows. He will be remembered for being a dedicated team man, always smiling, willing to help out, and took great pride in his work. The exceptional standard of parks, amenities and open spaces around the Coolum area are a testament to the care, dedication and commitment that Brett put into his role. Tom says, we have lost one of our team of our own, and Brett will be sorely missed by the team and those who knew him. I want to assure everybody that Tom Jamieson has spoken to Brett's father, to Rob and to his wife Deborah yesterday, and though they're understandably distraught, they appreciate the kind messages and offers of support received from the council family. So I'd just like to place on record the fact that Brett Mountford has passed, unfortunately, and it's always very sad when we lose one of our council team, and I'm sure that the CEO or the acting CEO and the Mayor will pass on condolences to the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillors, that brings an end to our agenda for today. I thank you very much for your contribution. We'll close the meeting at 12:52.